Hey truckers, today we're seeing part 19 of Reincarnation of the Businesswoman at School. Let's do. Where is Jacky? Gu Ning asked. She hadn't seen Tang Jacky ever since she had entered the Tang family's house. He's been in his school recently and he's busy this weekend, so he didn't come back. We haven't told him about what happened to Yunfan yet, Tang Haifeng said. In Tang Yunfan's room, Gu Man sat by the bedside, holding his hand, talking to him. Ning, I know you lost your memory about us, so let me tell you now. His name wasn't Tang Yunfan 18 years ago, so Gu Man called him Ning. Do you know why I named our daughter Gu Ning? It's because your name was Ning. 18 years, oh, no, 19 years ago to be specific, I met you. You had been injured all over your body. I took you to the hospital, but you told me that you had forgotten everything when you woke up and you wouldn't let me go. To be honest, my heart skipped a beat when I saw you for the first time because you were so handsome and charming. However, you lost your memory when we met each other and I don't know whether you were married or not, so I intentionally kept a distance from you. Well, I still fell in love with you in the end. I remember everything that happened between us. Once when a man sexually insulted me in my workplace, you stood up for me and beat him down on the ground. You were injured too. Once when. Gu Man told many details of her old memories. You were very outstanding in work too, and you became a supervisor after having worked in a company for only half a year, and you were gradually promoted to be the manager of the planning department. However, you were caught in a car accident, which was the beginning of our 18-year separation. In the beginning, I wanted to kill myself, but I found out that I was already pregnant, so I persuaded myself to live my life for the sake of our baby. When it was almost 7 p.m., Gu Ning went upstairs to tell Gu Man to come have dinner with them. Gu Man had already spent 2 hours in Tang Yunfan's room. It wasn't necessary to talk to Tang Yunfan for a whole day, and Gu Man could do it for around 2 hours in the morning and in the afternoon. It was tiring to talk for nearly 4 hours a day, and Gu Man needed rest as well. When Gu Man walked out, she looked haggard with red swollen eyes. Ning, I don't think that I'm in a good condition to meet them, Gu Man said. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Gu Ning held Gu Man's hands and secretly put her power into Gu Man's body to help Gu Man recover and cheer Gu Man up. However, Gu Ning didn't help Gu Man recover completely back to normal. If Gu Man looked normal as usual after seeing Tang Yunfan in danger, the others might think that she was cold-blooded. Therefore, Gu Man still appeared with her slightly haggard face. Nobody thought that she wasn't beautiful anymore but had deep sympathy for her. All the members in the Tang family felt guilty, but they didn't know what to say because they all hoped that Tang Yunfan would wake up as soon as possible. During dinner, Tang Yunrong and Jiang Lihua kept putting all kinds of dishes into Gu Man's bowl and told her to eat as much as she could. Gu Man actually had a poor appetite after crying and talking for 2 hours in Tang Yunfan's room. Even so, she did her best to eat as much as she could in order to not worry Tang Yunrong and Jiang Lihua. When Leng Xiaoting arrived at City B, he sat in a restaurant waiting for Gu Ning. Leng Xiaoting's outstanding appearance attracted a lot of attention from women around him, but many of them didn't dare to strike up a conversation with him because he seemed very cold. However, one woman was an exception. Because there was heating in the restaurant, many people took off their coats after they came in. And the woman who came to Leng Xiaoting's table was wearing a tight-fitting, low-cut red sweater with a hip-hugging skirt that outlined her alluring figure. Accompanied by her delicate features and makeup look, she was able to win most men's hearts. However, Leng Xiaoting only loved Gu Ning, so he disliked any woman who struck up a conversation with him. Hey, may I sit here? The woman asked in a sexy tone, but it was quite disgusting in Leng Xiaoting's ears. No, he said plainly, and the smile immediately froze on the woman's face. It was the very first time that a man had rejected her in public. Even so, the woman didn't want to give up because the man was so handsome. Hey, don't be so, the sourk of this content n/o/v/l by n. Leave me alone. Before the woman could finish, Ling Xiaoting opened his mouth again and gave her a cold glance. The woman was scared and felt utterly embarrassed, so she left in a hurry. Such things had happened many times. When Gu Ning and Gu Man finished dinner, they went back to Huafu Hills. They would come again at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Tang Yunhang drove them back to Huafu Hills in person, and Gu Ning could drive her car to the Tang family's house tomorrow. The car entered Huafu Hills and stopped in front of a beautiful house. When Gu Man saw the house, she was totally shocked. To her astonishment, the Tang family was so generous. Gu Ning had told Gu Man that the Tang family had given her a house before they went to visit them, but Gu Man didn't know that the house was so luxurious and was located in City B. The housing price was extremely high in City B, and this house had to be worth over dozens of millions of yuan. After they got out of the car, Tang Yunhang took out two 20-inch suitcases from its trunk. Gu Ning's clothes were in one of them, and Gu Man's were in another. What are these? Gu Man was confused. Grandpa Tang told my two aunts to prepare some clothes for us, in case we didn't bring a change of clothes with us from City G, Gu Ning explained. Well, Gu Man was surprised that the Tang family was so considerate. Please pass on my thanks to Master Tang, Gu Man said to Tang Yunhang. Actually, they could buy new clothes by themselves, but they accepted Master Tang's kindness since he already did it for them. Of course, Tang Yunhang said. The Tang family treated Gu Man very well, not only because her relationship with Tang Yunfan, but also because she came to City B for the purpose of helping them wake Tang Yunfan up. Tang Yunhang helped Gu Ning and Gu Man to carry the suitcases into the house before he left. After that, Gu Ning tidied a room up for Gu Man, which was a little distance from hers with a study and a guest room in the middle. Gu Ning did it on purpose, because Ling Xiaoting was going to visit her in the night. Gu Man's bedroom was only a little smaller than the master bedroom, and it was also equipped with a walk-in closet. When Gu Ning was tidying the room up for Gu Man, she sent a message to Ling Xiaoting with the location of her house. Gu Ning, I dare you to come. At this moment, Ling Xiaoting was still in the hotel, staring at the screen of his phone, thinking about why Gu Ning hadn't contacted him yet. He wasn't dreaming that he could meet Gu Ning tonight, but at least he could talk with her for a while on the phone. When he saw Gu Ning's message, all of a sudden, Ling Xiaoting almost jumped up from the sofa. Ling Xiaoting, of course I dare. Gu Ning, I always feel we're having an affair. Ling Xiaoting, we can tell your mother if you want. Gu Ning, forget it. If my mom finds it out, she'll blame you for seducing her daughter and chase you away from our house, haha. Ling Xiaoting, haha. Gu Ning, wait for a while, and come here a little later, because my mom is still awake. Ling Xiaoting, no problem. As long as he could see Gu Ning, he didn't care how late it was. Outside of the duplex, Chao Wenxin had just driven her bright red Lamborghini back in great anger. When she saw that the lights were on in Gu Ning's house, Chao Wenxin was surprised and couldn't believe her eyes. Gu Ning came to City B? Why didn't she tell me? Chao Wenxin stopped her car at once, then walked to Gu Ning's house with an angry expression. She decided to punish Gu Ning. She went to the door and rang the doorbell. Ning Ning, who could it be? Gu Man was confused, because it was very late now. Oh, it must be my aunt's daughter, Chao Wenxin. She lives in the next house, and I think that she must have found out that I'm here when she saw that our lights are on, Gu Ning said. She heard the sound of the car just then, and only Chao Wenxin and she lived here, so she bet it had to be Chao Wenxin. Oh! Gu Man followed Gu Ning walking downstairs. Since Chao Wenxin was Tang Yinrong's daughter, she had to meet her. Once the door was opened, Chao Wenxin raised her voice in anger. Gu Ning! Why didn't you tell me that you came to City B? If I didn't come back tonight, I wouldn't have found out. Before she finished her sentence, she noticed Gu Man in the living room and closed her mouth at once, feeling a little embarrassed. This is? Chao Wenxin asked. My mother, Gu Ning said. Really? Your mother looks so young. Chao Wenxin was astonished, because Gu Man looked like a woman around 30. Women loved hearing compliments, so Gu Man was very happy to hear that. Well, it's very nice to meet you. Chao Wenxin immediately greeted Gu Man politely. Chao Wenxin's attitude changed very fast, which amused Gu Ning and Gu Man. Nice to meet you too. Gu Man said, then invited Chao Wenxin to come in. Come on in, please. Chao Wenxin walked in and asked Gu Man in a hurry, would you please tell me how you take care of your skin? Although Chao Wenxin behaved like a boy normally, she was a young woman who loved beauty after all. Gu Man was almost 40, but looked like a woman around 30, and Chao Wenxin also wanted to look much younger than her real age. I don't know actually, because Ning Ning has helped me a lot. Gu Man smiled. She only knew that Gu Ning gave her and Gu Qing some nutritious food and told them to eat it regularly. Gu Ning, why didn't you tell me about that? Aren't we good sisters? Chao Wenxin criticized Gu Ning. Well, I'm thinking about sending you some skincare products which will be on the market soon, and you'll be the first person to have them. Satisfied? Gu Ning said. Chao Wenxin laughed. Very well. I was just kidding. Please don't be mad at me. Gu Ning rolled her eyes at Chao Wenxin, laughing too. Well, let me pour some water for you too, Gu Man said, walking to the kitchen, but was stopped by Gu Ning. Mom, don't bother. She lives just next door, and she can go home to have some water if she's thirsty. Get your Avrite ovals at no/v/e/lbn.com. Ning Ning, how can you be so impolite? Gu Man was a little displeased. Please don't bother. I did have a lot of water just a while ago, so I'm not thirsty now, Chao Wenxin said. Since Chao Wenxin said so, Gu Man didn't insist. She also didn't want to disturb the two girls chatting, so she went upstairs to organize her clothes. Once Gu Man was gone, Chao Wenxin questioned Gu Ning, when did you come here? Why didn't you tell me? Today, but I was very busy during the day, and I just came home, so I didn't have time to tell you yet. Gu Ning gave Chao Wenxin a perfunctory answer because she knew that Chao Wenxin wasn't aware of her relationship with the Tang family. Fine. Chao Wenxin understood Gu Ning was always busy, so she accepted Gu Ning's explanation. When will you go back to City F then? No idea, Gu Ning said. Speaking of that, Gu Ning suddenly realized that she hadn't called her head teacher for a leave yet. What? Don't you need to attend classes? Chao Wenxin was surprised. She knew that Gu Ning was a busy businesswoman, but Gu Ning was still a student too. Most importantly, Gu Ning was going to attend the National College entrance exam in a few months. I can't, because I have something important to deal with here. I think I'll call my principal tomorrow and discuss with him about whether I can be absent till the National College entrance exam, Gu Ning said. What? You're not going to attend your classes, and you'll directly attend the entrance examination to college? Are you sure that you can pass it? Chao Wenxin rounded her eyes in shock. She didn't expect that Gu Ning would be so bold. Will your principal agree? Will you be expelled? Don't worry. As long as I can pass the exam and get a good score, nobody will stop me. Gu Ning was confident that her principal would agree because she was the boss of Jade Beauty Jewelry after all. Skilled people were not only those who were good at studying, but also those who could do business well. Therefore, it was impossible that her principal would expel her, who became a billionaire at such a young age. Fine, you win. Seeing Gu Ning being so confident, Chao Wenxin chose to believe her. After all, Gu Ning was very outstanding. All of a sudden, Chao Wenxin seemed upset, so Gu Ning asked her, "What's wrong?" "It's all because of Xin Bei. When I first met him, I mistook him as a terrible man because I thought that Yuan Jing was his girlfriend, and I even helped Yuan Jing. However, I met Yuan Jing in a shopping mall today and she swore at me when she saw me. She's so insane, and said that I have a secret romantic relationship with Xin Bei. How is it possible? Xin Bei and I hate each other so much, and will never be close to one another." Chao Wenxin told Gu Ning everything, like she couldn't tolerate it anymore. Hearing that, Gu Ning was surprised. "Well, is it true? Are you secretly dating Xin Bei?" "Of course not. How is it possible?" Chao Wenxin denied it at once. "Her friend just saw me hanging out with Xin Bei at the Lantern Festival, so she believes that I'm dating Xin Bei, but we hung out together with our families. We didn't hang out alone." Chao Wenxin felt aggrieved. Gu Ning, on the other hand, was greatly surprised. "How come you hung out with Xin Bei at the Lantern Festival?" Gu Ning asked. Chao Wenxin said, "Didn't Xin Bei tell us that he was going to visit his uncle when we met him at the airport last time? Can you believe that his uncle is my uncle too? When we spent the Lantern Festival together, my aunt and my mom even wanted to set us up." Gu Ning thought for a while. In the beginning, she believed that Chao Wenxin and Su Jinchen would be a great couple, but it seemed that Chao Wenxin and Xin Bei were more suitable for each other. Although they disliked each other now, it was possible that they had a love-hate relationship. In addition, Tang Yunrong approved of Xin Bei. "Do you feel nothing for him?" Gu Ning asked. Get the L-test VLS at .o/v/e/l/by.co. Hearing that, Chao Wenxin panicked a little, then denied at once. "Yes, I feel nothing." Gu Ning smiled, but didn't say another word because she knew that Chao Wenxin was lying. She decided to do something when it was needed to help them. When it was almost 9 p.m., Chao Wenxin went back to her house. Gu Ning then called her principal. "Hi, I'm so sorry to bother you, sir. This is Gu Ning." "Gu Ning?" The principal was surprised to hear from Gu Ning. "May I help?" "Well, the thing is I'm very busy recently in City B and I'll be absent from classes a lot, so can I not go to school until the entrance examination to college comes?" "Please don't worry. I promise that I will keep studying on my own and pass the exam with a great test score," Gu Ning said. Gu Ning was confident that she could easily pass all kinds of exams. "Sure, no problem," the principal said with alacrity. "I'll talk to your head teacher tomorrow, and will inform you 3 days before the entrance examination to college." It went more smoothly than Gu Ning had thought. "Thank you so much," Gu Ning said. "My pleasure. Gu Ning, you're the pride of our school, and other principals from other school are all jealous of me after they heard about your successful business," the principal said with happiness. Gu Ning suddenly thought of something, then said, "Sir, if you don't mind, I'd love to donate 5 million yuan for redecoration or reconstruction of our school." Although the number 3 high school was just a common high school and many buildings were aging, the principal had applied for money to reconstruct and redecorate them. However, his application had been rejected. Since Gu Ning was rich now, she was willing to do something for her alma mater. Really? The principal was shocked and couldn't believe his ears. "Of course. I'll send someone to settle it with you tomorrow," Gu Ning said with a smile. "Will your parents agree?" the principal asked worriedly. He knew that Gu Ning had made a lot of money, but she was just a student after all. My parents are supportive, Gu Ning said. Hearing that, the principal relaxed. That'll be great. The principal was very excited and grateful. Thank you so much, Gu Ning. My pleasure, Gu Ning said. After hanging up the call with Gu Ning, the principal wiped his tears away. His wife, Bai Nianlan, noticed and asked with confusion, "What happened?" The principal sighed. "Didn't I tell you that my application for some money to reconstruct and redecorate the aged buildings in the school has been rejected?" So? Bai Nianlan was still confused and didn't understand why her husband seemed so excited. The source of this content n/o/v/l by n. Well, a student just donated 5 million yuan to our school for the reconstruction and redecoration, the principal said, and he had mixed emotions now. What? A student? A rich second-generation heir? Bai Nianlan thought that the student had to be from a rich family. Not really, she's the boss of Jade Beauty Jewelry, the principal said. Thinking of Gu Ning's identity, the principal couldn't help but admire her for her outstanding ability. What? It was her? Bai Nianlan was surprised. She had heard from her husband that the boss of Jade Beauty Jewelry was studying in his school, and she also admired Gu Ning. Ever since Bai Nianlan had heard what Gu Ning had achieved at such a young age, she always wished that her children could be as successful as Gu Ning. Right at that moment, Bai Nianlan's son came back home after playing basketball with his friends, and he had sweat a lot and had an unpleasant smell, which annoyed Bai Nianlan. Bai Nianlan then began to criticize her son, while her son had no idea why his mother suddenly became so mad at him. After a while, he finally figured out that his mother thought that he wasn't outstanding enough after hearing the story of an excellent student in his father's school. However, he felt aggrieved too. In fact, he wasn't bad compared with his peers and was also a good student in his school. Even so, he didn't dare to argue with his mother, but listened to his mother's endless criticism with patience. In City B, Gu Man was asleep around 11 p.m., so Gu Ning sent a message to Leng Xiaoting at once. The hotel where Leng Xiaoting stayed wasn't far, so he soon arrived at Gu Ning's house after reading her message. He called Gu Ning when he arrived and went to the side of Gu Ning's bedroom following Gu Ning's directions. When they saw each other, there was a burning desire in their eyes. "Do you need me to put a rope down there?" Gu Ning joked. She knew that it was easy for Leng Xiaoting to climb up 3 stories. "No need," Leng Xiaoting said, then hung up. Quickly, he had easily climbed up to the 3rd floor with just his hands. When he stood in front of Gu Ning, he clasped her in his arms like he hadn't seen her in ages. "Ning Ning, I missed you," Leng Xiaoting said, although they had only been apart for half a day. "My mom's bedroom isn't far away, so we need to be quiet," Gu Ning warned. "Sure, I'll hug you while we sleep, and we won't do anything," Leng Xiaoting said. He knew that Gu Man slept in a nearby bedroom, so he didn't dare to make noise, but he was already satisfied that he was able to hug Gu Ning and fall asleep together tonight. Although they didn't have sex, they did kiss and touch each other in bed. The next day, when light first appeared, Leng Xiaoting woke up. In case Gu Man would find out, and it was also inconvenient to leave during the day, Leng Xiaoting left Gu Ning's bedroom. Chao Wenxin called Gu Ning in the early morning, and she wanted to visit Gu Ning. Chao Wenxin felt bored now and would love to have some fun with Gu Ning. I'll call you back later," Gu Ning said. Chao Wenxin didn't know what had happened to Tang Yinfan yet, so Gu Ning wasn't sure whether she could tell Chao Wenxin. After hanging up the call with Chao Wenxin, Gu Ning called Tang Haifeng at once. Tang Haifeng didn't keep it a secret from Chao Wenxin on purpose, but he didn't want to worry the younger generation. Since Chao Wenxin wanted to spend the day with Gu Ning and Chao Wenxin would find out sooner or later, Tang Haifeng agreed. Therefore, Gu Ning called Chao Wenxin back and told her that they would go to the Tang family's house later. Hearing that, Chao Wenxin got up at once. It was already 7:30 a.m. but Chao Wenxin was still lying in bed. Although she had a habit of running in the morning, she would sometimes be lazy, especially when the weather was cold. And although it was already spring, it was still cold outside. Chao Wenxin came to Gu Ning's house around 8 a.m., and the breakfast was ready on the table. Seeing Gu Man, Chao Wenxin greeted her politely. "Do you want to drive your car, or drive with me?" Gu Ning asked Chao Wenxin during breakfast. "I'll drive with you," Chao Wenxin said. She was determined to spend the whole day with Gu Ning. After breakfast, the three of them left the house. However, when Gu Man saw Gu Ning's car, she was astonished, because she recognized that the car was a Lamborghini, which was very luxurious. "Ning, how much is your car?" Gu Man took a long breath in before she asked. "Aunt Tang sent it to me, and it costs over 10 million yuan, Gu Ning said. Hearing that, Gu Man was shocked. They're too generous. Gu Ning received the luxurious car as a gift when the Tang family didn't know that she actually was Tang Yinfan's biological daughter, so it was enough to prove that the Tang family was really generous. The gifts Ning sent us are also very valuable. A luxurious car is merely nothing, Chao Wenxin said. Hearing that, Gu Man relaxed a little. After that, they got in the car, driving away from the duplex. When Gu Ning and the others left the house, it was 8:30 a.m., so there wasn't much traffic on the roads. Not far behind Gu Ning's car was another luxurious car, and the people sitting in it started to discuss Gu Ning's white Lamborghini. "Isn't that the latest model of Lamborghini? I heard that there are only 40 of them around the world. I wanted to buy one, but it wasn't available," a man said in a jealous tone. The man was Pan Zirwei. T/his chapter is up.d by NVEL, bin.co/m. There were another two men in the luxurious car. One was Guan Bin, while the other was a stranger. Let's catch it up to see who the driver is. Guan Bin proposed with curiosity. The driver must either be rich or powerful. No problem. Pan Zirwei was curious too, so he sped up at once. However, when he saw who the driver of the white Lamborghini was, he slammed on the brakes in shock and couldn't believe his eyes. The driver was Gu Ning. Pan Zirwei suddenly stopped his car, and almost caused a rear-end collision. "Hey, do you know how to drive or not?" A driver who drove behind them swore in anger. Luckily, nobody was injured, so the driver drove his car away after swearing. Gu Ning and the others were also slightly scared. "It was so dangerous," Gu Man said. "Exactly. It almost caused a rear-end collision," Chao Wenxin said. Although Gu Ning didn't know who that luxurious car belonged to, she saw Pan Zirwei in the driver's seat from the rearview mirror, and she believed that Pan Zirwei must have been shocked to see her driving this white Lamborghini. Guan Bin was also scared in Pan Zirwei's car. "Zirwei, why did you suddenly slam on the brakes? Don't you know that it was very dangerous?" "The driver is my boss," Pan Zirwei said with excitement. "Boss? What boss?" Pan Zirwei's friend was curious. Guan Bin, on the other hand, said with great surprise, "What? The driver is Miss Gu?" Guan Bin sat in the rear seats so he didn't see the driver of the white Lamborghini clearly. "Miss Gu? Zirwei's boss is a woman?" Pan Zirwei's friend was astonished and couldn't believe his ears, because they all knew that Pan Zirwei despised women a lot. "Miss Gu is different, and we all admire her. When Zhao Konglin revenged himself on us and almost beat us to death, it was Miss Gu who came to rescue us. You weren't there, so you didn't know how cool Miss Gu was when she alone beat 4 men down within seconds. In addition, Miss Gu is Tang Jiakai's younger sister. I think that they have to be relatives." Guan Bin was getting increasingly excited. In the beginning, he despised Gu Ning, but he started to respect her after the horse racing. When Gu Ning came to rescue them, he already admired her. Really? Pan Zhiwei's friend was greatly surprised, because he had never heard that any woman could be so awesome. Of course, Pan Zhiwei said. Is Tang Jiakai from the top Tang family of City B? Pan Zhiwei's friend asked, and a touch of viciousness flashed by his eyes. Yes. Exactly, because of Miss Gu, I even shared a meal with Tang Jiakai at the same table, Guanbin said, and felt honored. There was an abyss between him and Tang Jiakai, so he wasn't jealous of Tang Jiakai, but just wanted to please Tang Jiakai. Zhiwei, since Miss Gu is your boss, why don't we have a gathering tonight? Pan Zhiwei's friend said. Let me call her later, and see whether she's free tonight. Pan Zhiwei also wanted to meet Gu Ning. When Gu Ning and the others arrived at the Tang family's house, Chao Wenxin finally learned that Tang Yunfan had been in a car accident and had been unconscious for nearly 5 days. At the same time, she also found out that Gu Ning was Tang Yunfan's biological daughter, which was the reason why they closely resembled each other. The news surprised Chao Wenxin, and she also felt excited. If Gu Ning was Tang Yunfan's biological daughter, then Gu Ning would be her biological cousin too. Fate was really unbelievable. However, she was worried about Tang Yunfan's condition too. When Gu Man went upstairs to talk to Tang Yunfan, Gu Ning received Pan Zhiwei's call. Boss, why didn't you tell me that you came to City B? Pan Zhiwei complained. I came here to deal with something serious, Gu Ning said. When will you be free? Can we have a gathering tonight? Pan Zhiwei asked. I'm afraid that I can't. I'll call you when I'm free, Gu Ning said. Fine, Pan Zhiwei said. Once Pan Zhiwei hung up the call, his friend asked him whether Gu Ning was free tonight. She doesn't have time tonight, but she'll call me when she's free, Pan Zhiwei said. Pan Zhiwei's friend, on the other hand, felt greatly disappointed, but he couldn't do anything about it. Ling Xiaoting wasn't a boss who did nothing. Although he had hired skilled managers to run Xingshi Group for him and he seldom interfered in the business or checked the finances, he still needed to keep abreast of the development of his business group. The headquarters of Xingshi Group was located in the capital and it had many branches in every big city. Xingshi Group wasn't established by Ling Xiaoting, but was actually his grandpa's property. When Ling Xiaoting's mother passed away, Ling Xiaoting became the sole beneficiary of his grandpa's legacy. When Ling Xiaoting took over Xingshi Group, it wasn't on the list of the top 20 enterprises. However, within 5 years, Xingshi Group rose and developed at a fast rate under Ling Xiaoting's leadership and surpassed one enterprise after another until it became a legend. The rapid rise of a company naturally would attract peers' attention, and many of them had schemed against Xingshi Group in business, trying to defeat it. In the beginning, it had been very hard for Ling Xiaoting to handle the challenges, but his business opponents started to give up when Ling Xiaoting and Xingshi Group became extremely successful over a short period of time. Xingshi Group and Tanghuang Group were two well-known dominant enterprises, and they often cooperated with each other. Neither Ling Xiaoting nor Tang Yunfan would bother to scheme against their business opponents, so they were able to build their business very well. However, if anyone dared scheme against them behind their backs, they wouldn't hesitate to take action. Interestingly, Tang Yunfan didn't know that the real boss of Xingshi Group was Ling Xiaoting, and vice versa. And from now on, given their relationships with Gu Ning, Xingshi Group and Tanghuang Group would cooperate with one another in a more harmonious way. They would compromise for the sake of Gu Ning and wouldn't hurt each other's benefits. Xingshi Group was located in a place near the downtown. It was a 32-story tall building, which covered over 1,000 square meters. He Qiming was the president of Xingshi Group's City B branch. He was around 40 years old, and was a diligent man who was also part of the legacy left by Ling Xiaoting's grandfather. The majority of the experienced managers Leng Xiaoting had hired to work for him were all loyal people. The fact that Xingshi Group could be so successful today partially relied on them. Dull. Once Leng Xiaoting entered the hall of Xingshi Group, he attracted a lot of attention from people around him, especially the young girls at the reception desk. Wow, Mr. Ling came here today. He's as handsome as always. Indeed. It's so rare to see him here. The young girls who worked at the reception desk all knew Leng Xiaoting because he had been here before, and He Qiming also told them not to stop Leng Xiaoting whenever he came here. Of course, He Qiming didn't tell them Leng Xiaoting's real identity, so they thought that Leng Xiaoting must be his friend. However, when Leng Xiaoting walked forward to get in the elevator, a group of people had just walked out of one, and the person leading them was a beautiful, young, professional woman. When she saw Leng Xiaoting, she was stunned by him at first glance. She didn't strike up a conversation with Leng Xiaoting in public, but remembered his face and made up her mind to have a meeting with him. Leng Xiaoting ignored them, directly walking to the CEO exclusive elevator. When the woman saw Leng Xiaoting walking into that elevator, her eyes lit up. Go find out who he is. The woman gave an order to her secretary when Leng Xiaoting walked into the CEO exclusive elevator. Yes, madam, her secretary said. After a while, Leng Xiaoting arrived at the CEO's office on the 32nd floor. Before Leng Xiaoting came here, he told He Qiming not to welcome him in order to protect his real identity. The minute Leng Xiaoting walked inside, He Qiming greeted him with great respect. Welcome, Lord Leng. Hi, Leng Xiaoting said lightly, then sat on the sofa. He Qiming's secretary immediately poured a cup of tea for Leng Xiaoting before she walked out. He Qiming then reported to Leng Xiaoting on the recent development of the company, but Leng Xiaoting didn't need to deal with the business himself. In fact, Leng Xiaoting wasn't good at doing business, but he was excellent at choosing the right people to do the right thing. When the company needed a final decision when facing a difficulty, Leng Xiaoting would, of course, be the final decision maker. Gu Ning was still absent from her school next week. Zhang Chihua didn't know why because Gu Ning hadn't told her that she would be absent for so long. During the recess, the principal told Zhang Chihua that Gu Ning wouldn't attend the following classes, which shocked Zhang Chihua. What? She won't attend the rest of the classes and will only come on the days of the National College Entrance Examination? You agreed? Yes, the principal said. He didn't think that it was a bad idea. The entrance examination to college is just around the corner. Zhang Chihua felt helpless. She promised to keep studying on her own, and that she'll pass the exam with a good score. Don't worry, the principal said. Even so, Zhang Chihua still thought that the idea was crazy. However, the principal had agreed, and she couldn't change his decision. Yu Mixi and the others also knew that Gu Ning was busy and wouldn't attend the rest of the classes, so they didn't call her in order to not disturb her. Once in a while, Gu Ning would chat with them in their WeChat group. In the Tang family's house, Gu Man spoke to Tang Yunfan in the room as usual, while Gu Ning stayed in the living hall. Today was Monday, so Tang Yunhang and the others went to work while Tang Haifeng, Chao Wenxin and Gu Ning stayed at home. Before long, Quan Mingkai came and followed Tang Haifeng walking to the study to discuss business with him. Master Tang, Tang Deming frequently visits Qing Zhongxing and Wu Boyan these days. I think that he wants to win their approval, Quan Mingkai said. Qing Zhongxing and Wu Boyan were the two directors who had abstained in the vote for a new chairman of Tang Huang Group. How has Qing Zhongxing and Wu Boyan reacted to that? Tang Haifeng asked. I don't see any differences from their usual behaviors, but nobody knows what they're doing privately, Quan Mingkai said. Even though there was no apparent change in their relationship with Tang Deming, nobody knew what they were doing in private. Qing Zhongxing and Wu Boyan had done a lot for the company, and had never hurt the benefits of the company, but Tang Haifeng still had to be careful. Master Tang, I have the feeling that there is someone supporting Tang Deming from behind the scene, but I don't know who the person is yet. From Tang Deming's call records, I don't find any suspects. However, it's also possible that they use secret phone numbers to contact each other, Quan Mingkai said. News tirais at n/vel/b/i/n.co. Although the Tang Huang group was very powerful, they still couldn't find out everything they wanted to know. Keeping a close eye on them, Tang Haifeng said. Yes, sir, Quan Mingkai said. After that, they talked about something else for a while before walking out of the study. Miss Gu, your store can be completed today, and it'll be fully cleaned tomorrow. Please let me know when you finish your work. Lord Tang has told me to cooperate with you in propaganda and endorsement, Quan Mingkai said to Gu Ning. Thanks, Mr. Quan. I'll call you once I finish my work here, Gu Ning said. She did need the support of Tang Huang Group concerning publicity. You don't need to call me Mr. Quan. We're not strangers after all, so you can directly call me Uncle Quan, Quan Mingkai said. Although he had just met Gu Ning a few times, Gu Ning was already a member of the Tang family anyway. Uncle Quan, Gu Ning called him. Please don't mean Miss Gu anymore, and you can directly call my full name. Sure, Gu Ning, Quan Mingkai said. Quan Mingkai still had something else to deal with, so he left later. All of a sudden, Gu Ning had a very busy schedule in the following days. The jewelry store in City B was about to open within a week, and the opening ceremony would be held in the Huangdang Hotel, which was super easy for her to settle. However, she had to go back to City G in person before that. They needed to deliver a large amount of jade jewelry, and it wouldn't be safe enough if Zhou Xinghong did that job all on his own. In addition, she had to set up a processing plant in City B so that she wouldn't need to deliver jade jewelry from City G in the future. After the meal, she also needed to check the gowns for the opening ceremony. Although she trusted Yuzi, she had to check them in person too. As for the models, she could hire some from the entertainment company under the name of Tang Huang Group. For now, Gu Ning hadn't made the final decision as to the spokesperson of Jade Beauty Jewelry because it was very important and the spokesperson would endorse her brand for at least a whole year. Therefore, Gu Ning's first choice was Su Tongnua because Su Tongnua worked for her and she knew that Su Tongnua was a professional actress with a good reputation. Ariad updated stirais at n/vel/bin.com. Maybe Su Tongnua wasn't very famous in the eyes of the public and she didn't have a strong influence, but Gu Ning wasn't worried at all. Since Su Tongnua worked for her, she would make her popular. Moreover, Su Tongnua was also a potential A-list actress, so Gu Ning was confident that she would be a great choice. As long as the advertisement was released, Su Tongnua could soon be a household name with the help of K. Other than that, Gu Ning also needed to go fetch Chu Pei Han and the others in City D as well, because their parts in the film were almost over. The drugs and skincare products were also done in the factory of Colane Pharmaceutical Company, and they would be tested in a few days. After the test, they could come onto the market. However, Ning Changkai's business enemies would stop him from passing the test without a doubt, so Gu Ning had to go to the capital in a few days. Chinsani's legs were fully recovered too, and he was able to work now, so Gu Ning had to make some arrangements for him. Ning, who will you choose to be the spokesperson of your jewelry brand? Chao Wenxin asked with curiosity. Su Tongnua, Gu Ning said. What? Chao Wenxin was surprised. Don't you think that her influence isn't strong enough? Why don't you use an A-list celebrity? Although Su Tongnua was a friend of Chao Wenxin's friend, it was undeniable that Su Tongnua wasn't famous enough to be the spokesperson of a well-known luxurious jewelry brand. Hearing their talk, Tang Haifeng added, I think Wenxin is right. There are a few actors working for an entertainment company which is controlled by our family. I think you can choose the spokesperson from them. Gu Ning wore a grateful smile. Thank you for your advice, Grandpa, but I still want to give this chance to the actress who works for my entertainment company. If she wasn't going to do that, the actresses who worked for her would never have a chance to be popular. What? The actress works for you? You're involved in the entertainment industry? Tang Haifeng was astonished. Yes, Gu Ning said, but didn't explain the reason. Tang Haifeng wanted to say something, but didn't know what to say. In fact, what could he say now? Gu Ning became a billionaire at such a young age all on her own, and had proved that she was able to run her business very well. Therefore, Tang Haifeng didn't have the right to stop Gu Ning from building her business empire. It was just a beginning as well, because Gu Ning had just started up her business, and she wasn't a major competitor in the industries that she was involved in yet. Once she became a strong competitor and began to grab resources from her peers, she would be in a fierce war in business. Girl Gu, if you need anything, feel free to tell me, all right? Tang Haifeng said. He was more than willing to support his lovely granddaughter. Sure, Grandpa, Gu Ning said. In politics, you might achieve something all on your own, but it didn't work like that in business. No matter how smart or skillful you were, you still needed to closely cooperate with others. Without a powerful network, it was impossible to be successful in business. Gu Man talked to Tang Yunfan for another 2 hours, but Tang Yunfan still had no reaction, which worried everyone. After lunch, Gu Ning had to leave the Tang family's house, but she was worried that Gu Man would feel uneasy staying alone here. However, Gu Man told her that everyone in the Tang family were easygoing, and Gu Man was accustomed to the new environment. Gu Ning went out to deal with some business as well as some personal affairs, so she couldn't bring Chao Wenxin with her. Although Chao Wenxin complained about it, she didn't insist. Once Gu Ning drove away from the Tang family's house, she called Yuzi. She planned to check on the gowns first. Yuzi was in her shop, so Gu Ning would go to her shop to meet her after she met Leng Xiaoting. Leng Xiaoting was sharing the meal with He Qiming in the hotel, so Gu Ning directly went to the hotel to pick him up. Although there were many luxurious cars stopped outside of the hotel, Gu Ning's limited edition Lamborghini was still very noticeable. Once she stopped it outside of the hotel, it attracted a lot of attention from people around it. Wow, isn't that the latest model of Lamborghini? There are only 40 of them around the world. Indeed. It looks so cool. Of course it looks cool. It's the limited edition. I think there are only 5 of that model in our country. Follow you stories at n/velb/in.com. Wow, the owner of the car must be super rich and powerful. Exactly. My cousin wanted to buy one, but failed. Gu Ning called Leng Xiaoting when she stopped the car, and Leng Xiaoting walked out soon. When he saw Gu Ning driving here by herself, he was surprised. Do you have a driver's license? Sure, Gu Ning said with pride. I passed the driving test when I came here after the New Year festival. Leng Xiaoting was impressed but not astonished, because he knew that Gu Ning was a skilled driver. Where are we going? Leng Xiaoting got in the car. Fengshan Shopping Mall, Gu Ning said. The hotel wasn't far from Fengshan Shopping Mall and they arrived within 10 minutes. When they entered the underground parking lot, Gu Ning stopped the car and was about to get out, but Leng Xiaoting pulled her back. What? Gu Ning looked to him with confusion. Stay here for a while. I need to tell you something, Leng Xiaoting said with a serious look. Seeing Leng Xiaoting being serious, Gu Ning thought that it must be something important. What is it? Leng Xiaoting approached her and Gu Ning thought that it must be a secret, so he needed to be close to her. Unexpectedly, Leng Xiaoting kissed her the next second. Gu Ning wouldn't be alert when she was with Leng Xiaoting, so Leng Xiaoting always had a chance to kiss her. Gu Ning was struck dumb for a second, then soon realized that Leng Xiaoting just played a romantic trick in order to kiss her. The two were getting closer to each other. Leng Xiaoting kissed Gu Ning for a short while before he sat back in his seat because they were still in a public place. Gu Ning was a little annoyed, but she had to admit that she loved this feeling. I always lose control of myself when you're by my side, Leng Xiaoting said, staring at Gu Ning with a burning desire in his eyes. Gu Ning flushed, then opened the car door, getting out without delay. Leng Xiaoting was amused, then left the car too. He walked to Gu Ning's side, holding her hand, walking together to the shopping mall. The moment they appeared in the shopping mall, many people were attracted to this stunning couple. Most of them were women who couldn't help but stare at Leng Xiaoting. It wasn't uncommon to see beautiful women in a high-end shopping mall, but it was rare to see a handsome man, especially an extremely handsome young man. What a shame! He already has a girlfriend. Well, stop dreaming. Such an extremely handsome young man can't be single. I hate his girlfriend. Ha ha. If he entered the entertainment industry, I bet that he'd be a household name. I think that he could be an heir of a super rich family and doesn't care about fame. You're right. A rich second-generation heir is from a much higher social status than a star. Although a star was in the limelight all the time, many people from rich or powerful families despised the job. Noticing many women paying a lot of attention to Leng Xiaoting, Gu Ning felt a little uncomfortable. Leng Xiaoting held her hand tightly in his palm and joked, "Should I wear a mask so that they can't see my face?" Ha ha. Gu Ning was amused. Well, I think that it's better if you don't leave the house and stay by my side all the time. No problem. Leng Xiaoting smiled. I'll eat and sleep all day in the house, and I won't go anywhere but stay by your side. He thought that it wasn't a bad idea to dine and sleep with Gu Ning all day long. However, Gu Ning didn't understand the special meaning of what Leng Xiaoting had said. What if you gain too much weight? Leng Xiaoting laughed and his husky voice sounded very sexy. Don't worry. I can exercise more every night. Gu Ning flushed again. You're a bad man. Saying that, she wanted to draw her hand from Leng Xiaoting's palm, but her hand was held tightly by him. Haha, I'll never let you leave my side. They were quite close to each other now, and neither of them was willing to leave the other. Before long, Gu Ning and Leng Xiaoting arrived at Charm's store. However, there weren't many customers shopping inside. Once Gu Ning and Leng Xiaoting walked in, a saleswoman, Xiao Lin, welcomed them. It's so nice to meet you, Miss Gu. Xiao Lin knew that Gu Ning was their new boss now. However, when she noticed Leng Xiaoting, her eyes lit up and she was stunned by his outstanding appearance. Xiao Lin also understood that this extremely handsome man could be her new boss's boyfriend, so she soon drew her look back. Gu Ning noticed her reaction but didn't mind. Where is Yuzi? She's in the storeroom now and she said that you may go there once you're here to meet her, Xiao Lin said. Great, Gu Ning said, then walked to the storeroom. Gu Ning knocked on the door of the storeroom. Hi, may I come in? Get your Avrite ovals at no/v/e/lbn.com. Come on in please. The door isn't locked, Yuzi said, and Gu Ning pushed the door open, walking inside. The storeroom was around 10 square meters and it was also Yuzi's design studio. There were dresses hanging on a wall and several mannequins dressed in gowns which weren't finished yet. On the other side, there was a sewing machine and a table on which various needles and tools such as scissors for making clothing was placed. Hi boss, welcome. Yuzi greeted Gu Ning with enthusiasm. When Yuzi saw Leng Xiaoting, she was also stunned. Hi. Yuzi greeted Leng Xiaoting. Hi, Leng Xiaoting said lightly. Boss, come on and have a look at the gowns. I can finish the 3 pieces on the mannequins by tomorrow, Yuzi said. Gu Ning had a look then said with satisfaction, I love them. Hearing that, Yuzi was finally relieved. I need to find an appropriate company and factory next, Gu Ning said. I can help. I'm free anyway, Lin Xiaoting said at once. He was complaining because Gu Ning didn't spend much time with him these days, and he was free and by himself all day. Gu Ning understood that he had complaints, so she agreed, that would be great. We need workers to work in the factory too, but it takes time to hire people. Please help me find some garment factories which can barely stay afloat and are about to be sold. If it's possible, we can directly acquire one, Gu Ning said. It wasn't easy to run a profitable business nowadays, so many companies went bankrupt every year, but Gu Ning would only acquire one if it was qualified. No problem, Lin Xiaoting said. Gu Ning came to Charm's store just to check on the gowns, so she left soon after that. She had nothing else to do during the rest of the day, so she decided to have a walk with Lin Xiaoting, and they would be back before dinner. Gu Ning and Lin Xiaoting went to a park. They stopped the car in the parking lot then got out to take a walk. There were many people in the park but the park was very large, so people didn't gather together at a certain place. No matter where Lin Xiaoting walked, people would be attracted to his outstanding appearance. Luckily, there weren't many people around them, so it wasn't bothersome. Gu Ning and Lin Xiaoting walked to the woods and ambled on the forest path. Xiao Yichu, what's wrong with you? Why didn't you come to record yesterday? Do you know that someone else bought the song before us, and we now have to pay liquidated damages which are over 1,000,000 yuan? Do you know? Gu Ning and Lin Xiaoting heard a man's angry criticisms. Enough! Before the man could finish the sentence, a woman interrupted him in anger. Xiao Guanxiang, enough is enough. Stop lying to my face. I already found out that you and Pei Hina are merely taking advantage of me. At the end, the woman almost shouted and burst into tears. Pei Hina? Gu Ning had heard the name. She was a popular singer. Xiao Guanxiang didn't expect that Xiao Yichu would say it aloud, so he was struck dumb. How is it possible that she found out? Xiao Yichu looked at Xiao Guanxiang, who was still in shock, and said with a biting smile, Xiao Guanxiang, I know that you actually don't like me at all, but approach me to help Pei Hina become popular. You said that you wanted to help me become a popular singer, but you planned a car accident and disfigured my face so that I can't appear in front of the public anymore. To realize my musical dream, I had no choice but to be a ghost singer for Pei Hina. How did you find out? Xiao Guanxiang rounded his eyes in shock, but his question proved that what Xiao Yichu had said was true. Even Gu Ning felt greatly surprised hearing that. Gu Ning didn't want to interfere in other people's personal affairs, but now she was interested. Pei Hina was a famous singer, which was affirmed by many experts. She also enjoyed great popularity among the public, and her name often appeared on the rankings of varied music forums. Unexpectedly, there was a ghost singer behind her. An entertainment company needed actors as well as singers. If Xiao Yichu was really the ghost singer for Pei Hina, Gu Ning would love to have a talk with her. Even though her face was disfigured, it was easy for Gu Ning to help her recover. Gu Ning pulled Lin Xiaoting to sit at a nearby bench, observing them. There was still a distance between them, so they didn't find out that Lin Xiaoting and Gu Ning were eavesdropping. Although the position they were standing at was covered by dense branches, Gu Ning had jade eyes to help her. Gu Ning's sight fell on Xiao Yichu, observing her carefully. Xiao Yichu was about 1.65 meter tall, medium build, not fat or thin, wearing a cap and a mask with only a pair of eyes exposed. Even so, Gu Ning still clearly saw her features. Xiao Yichu was a beauty to some extent, if the scary scar could be removed from her right cheek. Even in the entertainment industry, she would still be a noticeable beauty. With her outstanding voice, singing skill, and beautiful face, it was unreasonable that she wouldn't be popular as long as she had support. It's not important how I found out. Since I already know, I won't let you take advantage of me anymore. Without me, Pei Hina's career will be ruined. And, as long as I expose this dirty secret, you and Pei Hina will have to live in the darkness forever. Xiao Yichu looked vicious, and said with strong hatred. She wasn't a weak girl and had her own principles, but she had lost herself in love. Besides, ever since her face had been disfigured in an accident, Xiao Guansheng always stayed by her side, so she had remained loyal to him, which was the reason why she had fallen into the trap they set for her. No, you can't do that. Xiao Guanxiang panicked. Once this dirty secret was exposed, their reputation would be completely ruined. He had paid a lot to be successful, and the last thing he wanted now was to fall from that high social status. He was determined to be an outstanding agent. Why not? I'm the victim, and you're the initiators of the evil plan. Xia Yichu shouted in anger. Having been schemed against by the man she loved, Xia Yichu felt deeply hurt, but she was angrier and more resentful than ever. She had lost herself in the ridiculous love so much that she didn't discover that Xiao Guanxiang was so shameless, snobbish, and would get whatever he wanted by hook or by crook until now. Yichu, I'll give you money to get plastic surgery as compensation, and I'll raise your salary too. Please, keep being Hina's ghost singer, Xiao Guanxiang almost begged in order to protect his reputation and career. If I had enough money to get plastic surgery, do you think that I'd be willing to be Pei Hina's ghost singer any longer? I can stand on the stage myself. Xiao Yichu sneered. Xiao Yichu was beautiful, and she was a singer, not an actress, so the audience had comparatively lower standard of appearance. As long as she could sing well, she was confident that she could be popular. However, her face was disfigured. A disfigured face was different from an ugly face, and she felt quite self-abased ever since the accident had happened to her. Thinking of that, Xiao Yichu clenched her teeth in anger. Xiao Guanxiang, I promise that I'll pay you and Pei Hina back. Xiao Guanxiang seemed extremely displeased, and blurted out, Xiao Yichu, if you dare to do that, I'll kill you and nobody will know that you've ever existed. Facing the threat, Xiao Yichu stayed calm and raised her phone to show Xiao Guanxiang. Xiao Guanxiang, do you think that I came here to meet you without preparing anything? I've recorded every sentence you just said. If you dare hurt me, I'll spread it across the internet. Xiao Guanxiang panicked at once, reaching out to grab Xiao Yichu's phone, but Xiao Yichu escaped on time. Xiao Guanxiang was in a rage now. Thinking that Xiao Yichu could ruin his reputation and career, he lost control of his emotions. However, he thought of something all of a sudden, and seemed less angry. Xiao Yichu, don't forget that your younger brother is in my hands. If you dare to spread the recording across the internet, I'll make a call, and your younger brother will be tortured. Xiao Guanxiang had a connection with gangs. How dare you? Xia Yichu panicked this time. Her younger brother was her only family in this world, and she couldn't tolerate it if anything bad happened to him. Xia Yichu swore at herself. How could she forget that? Her younger brother was innocent, and Xiao Guanxiang would keep her younger brother as a hostage. Face the reality, Xia Yichu, and we can work together as usual. Don't worry. I'll still raise your salary, Xiao Guanxiang said arrogantly. However, if you dare to refuse, you can't bear the result. Xia Yichu was so mad, but she could do nothing about it. Although she hated Xiao Guanxiang and Pei Hina to death, she was reluctant to put her younger brother in a dangerous situation. She chose to yield for her younger brother's safety. Fine, I agree, Xia Yichu said in the end. She couldn't risk her younger brother's life. Hearing their conversation, Gu Ning really appreciated Xia Yichu now. Very well. Now, delete the recording, Xiao Guanxiang ordered. Xia Yichu didn't want to do it, but she had to obey Xiao Guanxiang's order and deleted the recording right in front of him. You can have the day off and I'll send some people to watch over your younger brother. If you dare do anything to resist my control, your younger brother is doomed, Xiao Guanxiang said. As long as Xia Yichu's younger brother was in his hands, he wasn't afraid that Xia Yichu wouldn't listen to him. After threatening Xia Yichu, Xiao Guanxiang left, while Xia Yichu collapsed to the ground, bursting into tears. At this moment, Gu Ning told Leng Xiaoqing to wait for her, while she walked to Xia Yichu. Did you sing every song for Pei Hina? Gu Ning asked. Hearing a stranger's voice, Xia Yichu was a little scared. She stopped crying at once, looking to Gu Ning with fear on her face. Did you hear everything just then? Xia Yichu was horrified. If this girl spread what she had heard abroad, her younger brother would be in great danger. Noticing Xia Yichu's worry, Gu Ning laid her cards on the table. Don't worry. I won't leak a word out. I just want to figure out whether you sang every song for Pei Hina. If so, you rouse my interest, and we can cooperate if you don't want to be controlled by them any longer. What? Cooperate? Xia Yichu was surprised and doubted it. Get your Avrite ovals at no/v/e/lbn.com. Gu Ning looked younger than 20 years old, so it was hard for Xia Yichu to believe that Gu Ning could help her. Xia Yichu wasn't judging Gu Ning from her appearance, but she did seem too young. Well, have you heard of Su Tonghua? Gu Ning opened her mouth. Do you mean the actress? Xia Yichu said. Yes, Gu Ning replied. I've heard her name, and she's quite popular recently, Xia Yichu said, but didn't understand why Gu Ning suddenly asked that question. I understand that you have doubts about my ability, but let me tell you a secret that Su Tonghua is working for my company now, Gu Ning said. What? You're the boss of Fenghua Entertainment? Xia Yichu was shocked. She couldn't believe her ears. Although Fenghua Entertainment was a newly established company, it was quite powerful in the entertainment industry. Yes, Gu Ning said directly. Hearing her affirmative answer, Xia Yichu began to believe that this young girl before her eyes really could help her. Do you have any evidence to prove that you're the boss of Fenghua Entertainment? Xia Yichu asked with doubt. Gu Ning understood that it wasn't persuasive if she said it without any solid proof. She then took out her phone and logged into the official Weibo account of Fenghua Entertainment before she showed the screen to Xia Yichu. I know it's still not enough to prove that I'm the boss of Fenghua Entertainment by logging into its official Weibo account, but it at least proves that I'm a key member of Fenghua Entertainment. Xia Yichu took a look at the screen and believed that Gu Ning could be the boss of Fenghua Entertainment. However, after a short period of excitement, Xia Yichu looked upset again. Do you want me to be a ghost singer when you sign me? I've done that for Pei Hina already, and I don't think that it's a good idea if I keep doing it for another singer. Xia Yichu wasn't sure why Gu Ning wanted to sign her. Her face had been disfigured after all, and it would cost a lot to do plastic surgery to help her recover. Gu Ning smiled then said, I'm not dumb, and I know that it's a bad idea. I want someone with real talent, not a ghost singer. Don't worry, I can help you regain your natural face without doing plastic surgery. What? Really? Xia Yichu was totally shocked and couldn't believe her ears. We'll see, Gu Ning said. Xia Yichu got excited again. Although it sounded too good to be true, she chose to believe Gu Ning. Since you've heard the argument between Xiao Guanxiang and me, you must know that he'll hurt my younger brother if I don't listen to him, Xia Yichu said. As long as she could get rid of Xiao Guanxiang's control, she was willing to do anything for Gu Ning. It was quite torturous to work for someone she hated to death. However, she couldn't abandon her younger brother. Gu Ning said with a smile on her face, "If you work for me, I will of course protect your younger brother." "Really?" Xiao Yichu was cheered up at once. "Of course," Gu Ning said affirmatively. "Great, I'll cooperate with you," Xiao Yichu said. "Aren't you curious about your salary?" Gu Ning looked at her, although she already had the answer. "I don't care about the salary as long as I can get rid of Qiao Guanxiang and my younger brother is safe." "I trust you," Xiao Yichu said. It couldn't be worse to work for Gu Ning than it would be to keep working for Qiao Guanxiang. Although Xiao Yichu had been treated unfairly, she still believed that there were more good people than bad ones in this world. "Great, but Fanghua Entertainment is in the capital, so you would have to move there," Gu Ning said. "No problem. It's a good thing to leave City B, but I can't leave my younger brother alone here, so would you please help me transfer him to a school in the capital?" Xiao Yichu asked. Follow stories at n/velb/in.com. There were only 2 of them in her family, and all their relatives stopped contacting her ever since her parents passed away, so she only cared about her younger brother. "Sure," Gu Ning said. Hearing that, Xiao Yichu was very grateful. "You have to leave for the capital right now. Give me your phone number first, and I'll send the number of the general manager of Fanghua Entertainment to you later. He'll take care of you, and make all the arrangements," Gu Ning said. Fanghua would provide a housing allowance for its actors or singers, so Xiao Yichu could use the money to rent an apartment for herself and her younger brother. It was just the beginning. If Xiao Yichu could achieve a lot in her career and help the company make a lot of money, she would gain more in the future. "Thanks," Xiao Yichu said. As for Qiao Guanxiang and Pei Hina, their reputation and career will soon be ruined once you show up on the stage, Gu Ning said. "You're right." Xiao Yichu agreed. She had already deleted the recording, so she didn't have solid proof to accuse Qiao Guanxiang with. However, as long as she left them and went on the stage herself, Pei Hina and Qiao Guanxiang's career wouldn't last long. "I don't have any proof of their dirty secret now because I already deleted the recording." Xiao Yichu was worried. It would be better if their dirty secrets could be exposed to the public. "Don't worry. I'll find some," Gu Ning said with confidence. "Just tell me their addresses and phone numbers." Gu Ning knew that she had to deal with those 2 potential enemies well, in case they tried to harm her business. Like when she had hired Lu Zhan and acted against Tang Bingsun, Gu Ning was determined to get revenge on the Tang family in the capital sooner or later. Although it wasn't difficult for her to kill Tang Bingsun now, she wasn't willing to do so, because she decided to carry out her plan at a slow pace and disintegrate the Tang family's business group little by little. In her previous incarnation, the Tang family's business group wouldn't have been so successful without her help. She lost count of how many illegal things she had done for them. The Tang family had made full use of her and became an influential, rich family in the capital. Xiao Yichu then sent Qiao Guanxiang's and Pei Hina's addresses and phone numbers to Gu Ning at once. After that, Gu Ning gave her a porcelain bottle the size of a thumb. "There is a pill inside, which can cure the scar on your face. Pour some water in the bottle, and apply some with a cotton swab to your scar twice a day." Xiao Yichu was surprised again. "This pill can cure my scar?" She couldn't believe it because the scar on her face wasn't small, and only plastic surgery could remove it. However, she thought that there was no reason for Gu Ning to lie to her. They had no benefit conflicts after all. In addition, Gu Ning needed her to make money for Gu Ning's company. Anyway, nothing good came without risk. Even if Gu Ning was just lying, she still had to try it. If she tried, she had hope, otherwise, she would be totally hopeless. Therefore, Xiao Yichu took Gu Ning's pill and thanked her with sincerity. "Thank you so much." "You're welcome. We just got what we needed from each other," Gu Ning said. Oh, you must do an injury report in the hospital first. It'll come in handy when you need it. I think you better do it when you arrive at the capital in case Xiao Guanxiang discovers it and causes unnecessary trouble. Sure, Xia Yichu said. After that, Gu Ning walked away and Xia Yichu immediately went back to her home and called her younger brother on the way. Xia Yidong was Xia Yichu's younger brother. He was 17 years old, studying in the 2nd grade in the No. 5 high school in City B. He wasn't very academically inclined, but was still a good student in his school. Xia Yichu was beautiful, and Xia Yidong didn't have a plain face either. Moreover, Xia Yidong was a talented composer. Xia Yichu stopped chasing her music dream because of an accident, so Xia Yidong made up his mind to actualize his older sister's dream and studied music hard. However, he kept it a secret from Xia Yichu because he didn't want his older sister to be worried about him. Follow you stories at n/VELB/in.com. It wasn't a flat road to success because there were too many people scheming against one another for fame and fortune in the music industry. Today, Xia Yidong asked for a leave from his school in order to listen to a lecture delivered by a famous music expert in a conservatory of music. When he received Xia Yichu's call, Xia Yichu asked where he was, and he lied, "I'm at school now. Head to the airport right now. I'll meet you there after I go home first. Don't ask further questions or tell anyone else, I'll tell you everything at the airport. If you don't do that, both of us will be in danger. Do you understand?" Xia Yichu said seriously and nervously. Hearing that, Xia Yidong understood that something had to be wrong. He was anxious, but Xia Yichu wouldn't tell him details until they met at the airport. A classmate who came to listen to the lecture with Xia Yidong noticed Xia Yidong's anxiety after answering the call, so he asked with concern when Xia Yidong hung up, "Yidong, what's wrong?" "I'm sorry. I gotta go now." Saying that, Xia Yidong took a taxi to the airport at once. Gu Ning called Lu Xiao later and told him what had happened to Xia Yichu. Lu Xiao would make arrangements for Xia Yichu's music career in the future. After that, Gu Ning turned to Ling Xiaoting. "Can you help me monitor Xiao Guanxiang and Pei Hina and record their conversations?" "Sure." Ling Xiaoting was, of course, more than willing to help Gu Ning. He wouldn't hesitate to do anything for her, let alone monitoring 2 people. Ling Xiaoting then made a call and arranged for someone to monitor Xiao Guanxiang and Pei Hina. Once Xiao Guanxiang left the park, he went straight to Pei Hina's apartment. Pei Hina didn't go to work today, so she wasn't wearing any makeup. She wore a thin sleeping gown which accentuated her alluring figure. Pei Hina was the same age as Xia Yichu. Both of them were 26 years old, and beautiful. Not many people knew that Xia Yichu was Pei Hina's ghost singer, but it wasn't a secret to some people. Except the senior management of their company, Xia Yichu's younger brother and Pei Hina's 2 assistants were all aware of it. And none of them would reveal it. Xia Yidong knew that his older sister's face had been disfigured so she couldn't stand on the stage. However, it wasn't a bad thing that she could sing songs behind the scene to make some money. Pei Hina's assistants had signed confidentiality agreements. If they leaked the secret information, they would be put in jail. The moment Xiao Guanxiang walked inside, Pei Hina pressed on him with her body then asked, "How is it? Did the bitch tell you why she was absent yesterday?" "She found out about our secret," Xiao Guanxiang said calmly to some extent, because he was less worried now after he got the goods on Xia Yichu. "What? She found out about our secret? How much does she know?" Pei Hina, on the other hand, was frightened. She understood that Xia Yichu wouldn't listen to them anymore if Xia Yichu found out their secret. She had paid a lot to be a famous singer and was reluctant to fail. Xiao Guanxiang hugged her and comforted. "Don't worry. I have Xia Yidong as a hostage, so she has to obey my orders. We don't need to keep our relationship a secret anymore. We can do whatever we want from now on. Hearing that, Pehina relaxed a little, but she was still worried. However, since she already found out, she's a walking time bomb now. What if she spreads it abroad? It's useless to think too far now. Don't you trust me? Xiao Guanxiang said. Before Pehina could say another word, he kissed her wildly. Although they appeared as agent and singer before others, they were a couple in private. However, they had to keep a distance from each other in order to take advantage of Xiaichu, and so they seldom made love. And now, Xiao Guanxiang told Pehina that they were able to do whatever they wanted, so Pehina's burning desire was aroused. She could finally stop meeting Xiao Guanxiang in private like she was the other woman in their relationship. Would you mind staying with me for a while? Ling Xiaoting stared straight at Gu Ning when Gu Ning drove Ling Xiaoting back to the hotel. I can't, Gu Ning said. She knew that if she went to the room with him, she wouldn't be leaving right away. Who knew what he would do to her? It was already 4:30 p.m., and it would be too late when she went back to her house, especially when it was highly possible that she would be caught by the rush hour on her way back home. Ling Xiaoting felt disappointed, but he understood Gu Ning, so he didn't insist. They could meet in the night after all. A short while after Ling Xiaoting went back to the hotel, he received He Qiming's call. While Gu Ning talked with Xiaichu in the park, Ling Xiaoting called He Qiming and told him to find some appropriate garment factories and companies which were on sale. Xingshi Group was indeed very powerful, and He Qiming finished his task within an hour. Lord Ling, there are exactly 2 vacant floors in an office building which is under construction of our company. Every floor is 800 square meters large. As for garment factories, I've found 3 of them, and I've emailed their information to you. Please check the email. He Qiming said. Most up-to-date NVELs are published on n0velgen.co/m. Great, Ling Xiaoting said, then opened the latest email. The 3 garment factories that could barely stay afloat were all because of poor management, and they were all in good locations with advanced equipment. However, Ling Xiaoting didn't make the decision for Gu Ning but would let her choose when they met in the night. When Gu Ning was driving to the Tang family's house, Xiaichu arrived at the airport with 2 suitcases. One was filled with her clothes, and the other was full of Xiai Dong's clothing and laptop. They didn't live a very good life, so there weren't many things they had to take with them. Xiai Dong arrived at the airport 40 minutes after he had received Xiaichu's call, and he was pacing anxiously outside the entire time. Xiaichu had booked the plane tickets, and the flight would take off around 6:20 p.m. They still had nearly 50 minutes to wait. Seeing Xiaichu coming, Xiai Dong walked forward and helped her with the luggage. What happened? Why do we have to leave for the capital in a hurry? Xiai Dong asked. Take the boarding cards first. I'll tell you everything once we're in the lounge, Xiaichu said. Sure. Xiai Dong didn't continue to ask questions, and they pulled their suitcases, walking into the airport. When they found a place in the lounge where there weren't many people, Xiaichu told Xiai Dong everything. She didn't hide any details. After hearing what his older sister had been through, Xiai Dong was furious, and wanted to tear Xiao Guanxiang and Pehina into pieces. Damn it! How could Xiao Guanxiang treat you like that? Although Xiai Dong was mad, he still had reason, and didn't shout it out loud in case others would hear it. However, he put on an evil expression, which even scared Xiaichu. I'm sorry. It's all my fault that I failed to take good care of you, Xiai Dong said, and he seemed very sad. Although Xiaichu was the older sister while Xiai Dong was the younger brother, Xiai Dong felt that it was his duty as a man to protect his older sister. Dong, don't say that. You're my younger brother and I should be taking care of you. It's my fault that I stupidly lost myself in love. I'm sorry. Xiaichu felt really guilty. If she hadn't trusted Xiao Guanxiang so much, she wouldn't have been through so many terrible things. I'm a man, and men should protect women, Xia Yidong argued. All right, now is not a good time to argue. Xia Yichu understood that Xia Yidong had a strong sense of responsibility, and she would never win in an argument like that with him. Xia Yidong also stopped arguing but asked worriedly, will Qiao Guanxiang find us even if we escape to the capital? Relax, Xia Yichu said. Then she told Xia Yidong about what had happened to her after she met Gu Ning. Hearing that his older sister was signed by an influential entertainment company in the capital, Xia Yidong was excited. His older sister's musical dream was finally going to come true. Really? Xia Yidong was afraid that he was in a daydream, so he asked again with uncertainty. Yes, it's real. In fact, Xia Yichu also felt like she was in a dream because it was too good to be true, but she still gave Xia Yidong an affirmative answer in order to comfort him. That's so great! Xia Yidong lost words to describe how excited he was now. As long as his older sister could stand on the stage, Qiao Guanxiang and Pei Hina would be doomed. In addition, he agreed to transfer to another school in the capital because all he wanted now was that he and his older sister could be safe together. When Gu Ning got back to the Tang family's house, it was past 5 p.m., and Gu Man was still talking to Tang Yunfan in his bedroom. Ning, you came back so late. I'm so bored. Once Gu Ning walked inside, Chao Wenxin complained. Chao Wenxin wasn't a quiet girl, and it bored her to stay with the older generation for a long time. Tang Jiakai wasn't home either, so there was nobody that Chao Wenxin could play with. I went out to deal with something serious, Gu Ning said. Chao Wenxin was already past 20 years old, but she still behaved like a child who loved playing. Wenxin, don't fool around all day. Why don't you learn something from Ning? She's achieved a lot at such a young age. Tang Haifeng criticized Chao Wenxin. Although the Tang family and the Chao family were rich enough to support their offspring to live a luxurious life for generations, it wasn't a good thing that Chao Wenxin did nothing but fool around all day, because it was a total waste of her life. Chao Wenxin pulled her lips, remaining silent. She understood that she wasn't comparable to Gu Ning. Let alone Chao Wenxin, there were few young people in this world who could achieve so much at such a young age. Gu Man had talked to Tang Yunfan for over 2 hours today, but he still had no reaction. Gu Man felt a little disappointed and sad, but she could do nothing about it. However, when Gu Man stood up, walking away, Tang Yunfan's fingers moved a little then stopped. After dinner, Gu Man and Gu Ning left, followed by Chao Wenxin. Ning, are you free tonight? If you are, why don't you go to a friend's gathering with me? Chao Wenxin asked Gu Ning on their way back. I am free tonight, but I need to stay at home with my mom. She'll be bored alone, Gu Ning said. Don't worry about me. I'll be fine alone, Gu Man said. Since Gu Man said so, Gu Ning agreed to have some fun with Chao Wenxin. Gu Ning sent Gu Man back to Huafu Hills, then came out after a dozen minutes. Are you going to drink? If you are, we can't drive the car because I'm going to drink, Chao Wenxin said when they walked out together. I won't drink. Let me drive the car, but I think your ORV1 is enough. The Lamborghini is too noticeable, Gu Ning said. She had experienced the feeling of being the focus of people's attention during the day. And although it wasn't bad, she still preferred to keep a low profile. Fine. Chao Wenxin agreed, then gave the car key of her Land Rover to Gu Ning. Can I bring a friend with me? Gu Ning asked. Her friend was Leng Xiaoting. The reason why Gu Ning agreed to have some fun with Chao Wenxin was because she could call Leng Xiaoting to go out with her too. Gu Ning didn't bother to hide the fact that Leng Xiaoting was in City B from Chao Wenxin. Who is it? A man or woman? Chao Wenxin asked or gossiped. A man, Gu Ning said. No way, is he Pan Zirwei? Chao Wenxin asked because Pan Zirwei had invited Gu Ning to meet earlier. No, it's Shouting, Gu Ning said. What? Chao Wenxin was surprised. Shouting is in City B? For some reason, Chao Wenxin thought of Xin Bei at this moment. She was curious whether Xin Bei came to City B along with Leng Shouting. However, she despised herself for thinking of Xin Bei the next second. Yes, he's on vacation now, so he came to City B to meet me, Gu Ning said. Oh, did you go to meet him this afternoon? Chao Wenxin asked. Yes, but we went out for business. My jewelry store in City B is going to open soon, so we went to check the gowns. Oh, I need to find an appropriate garment company and factory too, Gu Ning said. You can let Uncle Quan do that for you. It's a piece of cake for him, Chao Wenxin said. Shouting will handle it, Gu Ning said. Fine. I'm envious of you because you have such an outstanding boyfriend. Chao Wenxin said. Gu Ning smiled. You can find one too. I know you have many admirers. I don't like them, Chao Wenxin sighed. She always wanted to date someone she liked but couldn't find one. Gu Ning didn't say anything further, but called Leng Shouting. Leng Shouting was very happy to receive Gu Ning's call. Even if he could only hear her voice, he felt satisfied. Ning Ning! Leng Shouting called her name with excitement. Are you free now? Gu Ning asked. Hearing that, Leng Shouting was cheered up at once. Of course! Gu Ning was amused by Leng Shouting's reaction. Wait for me at the door of the hotel. I'll pick you up soon. We're going to hang out with Wenxin tonight. Sure, Leng Shouting said. Although he couldn't kiss Gu Ning if Chao Wenxin was there, it was much better than staying at the hotel by himself. Maybe because of Chao Wenxin, Gu Ning called him to have fun together. Thinking of that, Leng Shouting didn't have complaints towards Chao Wenxin. After hanging up the call with Gu Ning, Leng Shouting adjusted himself before he went downstairs. He had waited for almost 10 minutes when Gu Ning finally arrived. Although he was a little impatient, he didn't complain about it but enjoyed it. Gu Ning stopped the car at the door of the hotel and Leng Shouting walked over to them. Let me be the driver, he said. Since he was here, he was willing to do the job for Gu Ning. After that, before Gu Ning had even said a word, Chao Wenxin got out of the front passenger seat and went to sit in the back seat. You two can share the seats in the front, and I'll sit at the back. Leng Shouting was going to drive the car so she, of course, wouldn't sit in the front passenger seat. Normally, if a couple was in the same car and the husband was the driver, the front passenger seat belonged to the wife. Therefore, Gu Ning directly moved to the front passenger seat from the driver's seat and left it to Leng Shouting. The appointed place where Chao Wenxin was going to meet her friends was a private clubhouse. Private clubhouses provided a private environment for people from high social class. To make it simple, a private clubhouse was where rich people gathered together, and the membership fee was also very high. Only a member could book a room, so membership was also the sign of one's wealth or social status. In addition, one had to book a room a few days in advance because it was hard to book one on the day that he or she came. When Gu Ning and the others left for the clubhouse, Xia Yichu and her younger brother also got off the plane. Xia Yichu had called Lu Xiao before she boarded and Lu Xiao had already arranged a driver to pick them up. Once the plane landed, Xia Yichu called the driver. The driver told them that they would be staying in a hotel tonight and would meet the general manager, Lu Xiao, tomorrow. Lu Xiao booked 2 rooms at a 4-star hotel which was the nearest one to the Xingning Group building for Xia Yichu and her younger brother. Although a 4-star hotel wasn't as luxurious as a 5-star one, it wasn't bad either. The most up-to-date NVELs are published on n0velg.co/m. Xingning Group building wasn't fully built yet, but they were renting a nearby 300 square meter building as the temporary office building. It was just a temporary office building, so it wasn't well decorated. Although the Xingning Group building was still under construction, Liu Xiao was busy acquiring equipment and hiring people these days. Liu Zhan had his own shooting equipment, but they needed more than just one set. There were around a dozen workers in Fenghua Entertainment now, and Liu Xiao had used his network to hire some skilled people for the management. When Gu Ning and the others arrived at the private clubhouse, a valet parker helped them drive the car to the parking lot and another waiter guided them to their private room. Chao Wenxin and her friends met in the sports area, so there was a lot of exercise equipment, boxing rings and so on. 1. ORV stands for off-road vehicle. However, just as they got out of the car, another car stopped right behind them. Coincidentally, Fang Xiaoke, who had approached Chao Wenxin for the purpose of marrying into a super-rich family, stepped out of the car. She was holding a middle-aged man's arm and it was quite obvious that she was the man's mistress. She really was a woman who was willing to sell both her body and soul for money. When Fang Xiaoke saw Chao Wenxin, she was struck dumb for a second, then pretended that she didn't know Chao Wenxin. To her surprise, she met Chao Wenxin here. Chao Wenxin also didn't want to pay attention to Fang Xiaoke, so she turned her eyes away too. Fang Xiaoke is really a gold digger. My older brother stopped paying her bills, so she turned to an old man and became his mistress, Chao Wenxin said when Fang Xiaoke and the man walked away. Chao Wenxin was extremely regretful that she had taken Fang Xiaoke as her friend before. Before long, they arrived at the sports area. Welcome! Once they entered the hall, waiters greeted them politely. May I ask which private room you are going to? A waiter asked. All the private rooms were booked, so they had to be here to meet their friends. Number 888, my name's Chao Wenxin, Chao Wenxin said. Even though they were here to meet their friends, the waiter had to check their information first. Please wait a moment, the waiter said, then took out a walkie-talkie speaking to the butler of private room number 888. With the affirmative answer, the waiter guided them to private room number 888 at once. The private room was spacious, but there were only 5 people inside, so it looked empty to some extent. There were 3 women and 2 men in the room, but only one of the men and women were Chao Wenxin's friends, while the rest were her friends' friends. They weren't strangers, but Chao Wenxin wasn't familiar with them. Chao Wenxin's male friend's father was also a leader in the military region and her female friend was from a super-rich family. The 3 of them grew up together, but they went to different colleges. Now they had all graduated from their schools, so they came back to City B lately. The other 3 people in the room were all from either rich or powerful families. Although Chao Wenxin didn't make friends according to a person's family background, it was an unavoidable trend that she would make friends with people from the same social class as her. Chao Wenxin told her friends that she would be bringing 2 other friends and her friends all agreed. However, once Gu Ning and Leng Xiaoting entered the room, the 2 attracted everyone's attention. Especially Leng Xiaoting, his appearance overshadowed every man's existence in the private room. A woman with short hair was excited when Leng Xiaoting appeared in her sight, but she soon hid her excitement away. This woman was exactly the one who had encountered Leng Xiaoting in the hall of Xingshi Group. Nevertheless, her secretary failed to find out about Leng Xiaoting's real identity, which disappointed her, but to her surprise, she met Leng Xiaoting again in the evening. Hi, Wenxin, they greeted Chao Wenxin when she walked in. Chao Wenxin guided Gu Ning and Leng Xiaoting to sit on an empty sofa, then introduced them to her friends. Let me introduce. They're both my friends, Gu Ning and Leng Xiaoting. Gu Ning had reminded Chao Wenxin not to expose her relationship with the Tang family, so Chao Wenxin introduced her as a friend. Although Gu Ning was Tang Haifeng's biological daughter, it was still a secret, so it was better for them not to say it aloud now. In addition, they were just gathering for fun. The woman with short hair repeated Leng Xiaoting's name in her heart a few times. F0 Lo New Hapters at NOV/EL/BIN/.com. Nice to meet you, Mr. Leng, Miss Gu, they greeted them politely. Nice to meet you too, Gu Ning and Leng Xiaoting said. After that, Chao Wenxin introduced her friends to Gu Ning and Leng Xiaoting. This is Gao Qingyun and An Ran. We grew up together. And they're Jiang Zijing, Xu Yuanjin and Tong Jiayao. Tong Jiayao was precisely the woman with short hair. Oh, Mr. Leng, nice to meet you. What a coincidence. I just saw you at Xingshi Group today, and yet we are meeting each other again. Mr. Leng, maybe you didn't notice me, Tong Jiayao said to Leng Xiaoting politely. She seemed very polite and kept an appropriate distance from Leng Xiaoting. I didn't, Leng Xiaoting said lightly, which embarrassed Tong Jiayao. She didn't expect that he would be so cold to her. Although Tong Jiayao covered her feelings towards Leng Xiaoting very well, Gu Ning still sensed that she was interested in Leng Xiaoting. It was just Gu Ning's instinct. As long as she stayed polite, Gu Ning wouldn't jump to conclusions. In the meantime, Gu Ning noticed that the woman wasn't from a normal super-rich family. The other people were also surprised by Leng Xiaoting's cold attitude, but they didn't mind, because they had just met each other for the first time. Well, let's have some drinks. Gao Qingyun proposed to cheer everyone up. There was no waiter in the room because they preferred to serve themselves. Gu Ning needs to drive the car, so she won't drink, Chao Wenxin said, then she turned to Leng Xiaoting. Xiaoting, do you want to drink? Chao Wenxin was a little afraid of Leng Xiaoting. Not because Leng Xiaoting had a bad temper, but because he always stayed quiet and cold. No, thanks. Leng Xiaoting didn't like drinking unless he had to or he was with his close friends. Since we're here to have fun, it'll be boring if we don't drink together, Jiang Zijing said. Exactly. If you can't drink we won't force you, but if you can, why don't you have some with us? Gao Qingyun added. Normally, men gathered together to drink for fun, which was also a way to create a relaxed atmosphere. However, Gao Qingyun wasn't criticizing Leng Xiaoting but was just persuading him. They're fine. They can chat with each other, all in love, and they won't get bored. I can drink with you, Chao Wenxin said. Since Leng Xiaoting wasn't willing to drink, she wouldn't force him to do so. F0 Lo New Hapters at NOV/EL/BIN/.com. Gu Ning needed to drive the car, so everyone understood that she wouldn't drink. However, Leng Xiaoting seemed cold and refused to drink, which displeased them. Gu Ning sensed their emotional change and she also believed that Leng Xiaoting should have fun with those who didn't understand him in case refusing caused misunderstandings. Anyway, she didn't care about others' opinions. Nonetheless, when Tong Jiayao heard Chao Wenxin saying that they could chat with each other in love, she realized that Gu Ning and Leng Xiaoting were girlfriend and boyfriend, so she was a little disappointed. Even so, she didn't give up, and made up her mind to compete against Gu Ning for Leng Xiaoting as long as they weren't married. After all, Tong Jiayao finally met a man she was interested in. Compared with those women who tended to seduce men with their bodies, Tong Jiayao would rather attract a man with her own charm. Therefore, she wouldn't seduce Leng Xiaoting, but seized every chance to talk to him. Of course, she wouldn't do it in front of Gu Ning. Since you aren't drinking, why don't we chat together? Tong Jiayao said. Miss Gu, you look so young. Are you still a student? Tong Jiayao behaved casually and seemed kind, but Gu Ning already sensed that she was interested in Leng Xiaoting, so Gu Ning was alert now. However, before Tong Jiayao did anything inappropriate, Gu Ning replied politely, "Yes, I'm a senior in high school." Hearing that, everyone was surprised. Tong Jiayao thought that Gu Ning was too young to be married and anything could happen in the future, so she believed that it was impossible that Gu Ning and Leng Xiaoting would be together for long. The fact that she had that thought proved that Tong Jiayao didn't know much about Gu Ning or Leng Xiaoting. The entrance examination to college is just around the corner. Miss Gu, which university is your dream college? And Ran asked. The Capital University, Gu Ning said. Hearing that, Tong Jiayao thought that Gu Ning was going to study in the capital, while Leng Xiaoting would stay in City B. They all subconsciously thought that both Leng Xiaoting and Gu Ning lived in City B, otherwise, Gu Ning wouldn't be here if she was still a student. In that case, Tong Jiayao was hopeful. She didn't care who Leng Xiaoting's girlfriend was now. As long as they weren't married yet, she still had a chance to win Leng Xiaoting's heart. In fact, Tong Jiayao was a self-centered person who would do anything to get what she wanted and ignored others' feelings. After chatting for a while, Gao Qingyun said to Chao Wenxin, we haven't had a kung fu match for a long time. Why don't we have a round now? Both of them grew up in the military region, and they would have a kung fu match every time they met each other. In addition, they were at the same level of kung fu, and the match wouldn't end quickly, so it was exciting to watch. They were in a sports area, so there was enough room for them to have a kung fu match. Of course! Chao Wenxin was excited. Let's have a bet as usual. And Ran said. Every time Chao Wenxin had a kung fu match with Gao Qingyun, the others would bet for fun. Since the two were at the same level of kung fu, it was unpredictable who would win, which was also the reason why the bet would be so exciting. Of course, they wouldn't bet money but wine. Gao Qingyun took a bottle of wine which wasn't opened yet. The loser has to finish the bottle by himself. If there was a loser, the loser would finish the bottle alone. If the result was even, the two would share the bottle 50-50. No problem. Everyone agreed. Gu Ning and Leng Xiaoting wouldn't drink, so they didn't join them. I bet Wenxin will win, Jiang Zizheng said. They all knew that Jiang Zizheng liked Chao Wenxin, so he bet that Chao Wenxin would win every time. Unfortunately, Chao Wenxin wasn't interested in Jiang Zizheng, so Jiang Zizheng stayed by her side as her friend. Interestingly, Zhu Yuanjun liked Jiang Zizheng, but Jiang Zizheng wasn't interested in Zhu Yuanjun, so they became friends. It wasn't always easy to fall in love with a person who loved you too. I bet Qingyun will win, and Ran said. In the end, Jiang Zizheng and Tong Jiayao bet that Chao Wenxin would win, while Ran and Zhu Yuanjun bet that Gao Qingyun would win. After that, the kung fu match began. The two attacked each other constantly and it seemed very exciting to outsiders, like Jiang Zizheng and the others, but it was quite childish in the eyes of Leng Xiaoting and Gu Ning. They weren't at the same level as Gu Ning and Leng Xiaoting after all. Around 10 minutes later, they stopped, and Gao Qingyun lost this time. It wasn't a surprising result, because the two were at the same level of kung fu. Come on, Qingyun, and Ran and Yuanjun, you share a bottle. Jiang Zizheng was excited that he won the bet. Gao Qingyun lost, so he had to drink too. Qingyun, did you lose because you wanted to drink this bottle? And Ran pretended that he was dissatisfied. However, he was just joking. Ha ha, you got me. Gao Qingyun laughed. And Ran glared at Gao Qingyun. Since you want to drink, you can drink more than us. Nope, let's share it. Gao Qingyun said. After that, Gao Qingyun and Ran and Zhu Yuanjun shared a bottle of wine. What should we play next? And Ran asked. Bluffing? Zhu Yuanjun proposed. The rules were each die had 6 sides, from 1 pip to 6 pips. Each player held 5 dice in their dice cup without revealing it to each other. The purpose of this game was to guess the total number of one particular pip from both players, and if you were right, you won, if you were wrong, then you lost. For example, it could be from 1-6 to 12 SIXS. The game started with one player who called for a number of pips, e.g. 3 twos, then the next player would have to raise, i.e. 4 twos or 3 threes. Either the total number or the pip number had to be bigger than the previous calling as the game took turns. If you thought your opponent was bluffing, then you could say open. Supposing you had 2 1s and 2 3s, and your opponent had 1 1 and 2 3s in both of your dice cups. Then your opponent called for 8 3s, and you didn't believe him and said open, then you won. If he called for 7 3s and you said open, then you lost. Normally, one pip could be any number of pips, i.e. it could be 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, so that the game could be more complicated and fun. It was like an unknown factor, because a player might only have 1 2 in his dice cup, but he also had 3 eyes, which meant he had 4 2s potentially. However, there was a special rule. If a player called for the number of 1 pip, e.g. 3 1s, then 1 pip automatically lost its multiple identities. It could now only be 1 pip until the game ended. Sure, everyone agreed. Why don't you join us? If you lose the game, you can drink water, not wine, Tong Jiao said. She thought that she would have more chances to get familiar with Leng Xiaoting if they could play the game together. Right. You can drink water. The others all agreed. They just met each other. If Leng Xiaoting and Gu Ning didn't join them, they would feel bored sitting aside. Well, I'll join you, Gu Ning said. She didn't want them to feel that she stayed aloof from them. Gu Ning also understood that Leng Xiaoting wasn't interested in games which were aimed at drinking, so she didn't ask him to join them along with her. The others didn't insist either. Gu Ning decided not to use her jade eyes this time, because it would be a little much if she used that in such a small game. At the same time, she wouldn't enjoy playing the game if she used her jade eyes. She had used jade eyes the last time in a game with Ai Weishan just to get revenge on him for Leng Xiaoting. However, even though Gu Ning didn't use her jade eyes, she was still lucky and seldom lost. The others, on the other hand, drank a lot. When it was about 11 p.m., they left the clubhouse. Since Chao Wenxin was with them, Gu Ning could only send Leng Xiaoting back to the hotel before she drove back to Huafu Hills with Chao Wenxin, and Leng Xiaoting would take a taxi to Huafu Hills later. Gu Man was already asleep when Gu Ning was back. Leng Xiaoting soon arrived at Gu Ning's room, but he didn't kiss or touch her immediately this time. Instead, he clicked an email open and showed Gu Ning the offices and garment factories. UW on nov/l/bi.com. How much is the rent? Gu Ning squinted at him with interest. It's free, Leng Xiaoting said. Haha, you're so generous, Gu Ning said. Although she felt happy that Leng Xiaoting didn't charge her, she couldn't accept it. Xiaoting, business is business. If you don't want the rent, I'm afraid that I can't rent your offices. Hearing that, Leng Xiaoting frowned a little. He seemed upset, but didn't know how to retort. Gu Ning then read the information about the 3 garment factories. She trusted Leng Xiaoting, but she still needed to check them in person tomorrow. Oh, how many days of your vacation do you have left? Gu Ning asked. Hard to tell. If I'm assigned a task, I have to go back to work at any time. If not, I still have many days off, Leng Xiaoting said. As a member of the Special Corps, he was paid a lot more than a common soldier. Not only did they need to fulfill dangerous tasks, but they also had 3 days of special training once a month as well as deep forest training in the Amazon for half a month every year. Leng Xiaoting had just finished his monthly special training, so he would be free as long as he wasn't assigned a task. I need to check the factories at noon tomorrow. After choosing a qualified one from them, I'll fly to City D in the evening. If you're free, why don't you go with me? Gu Ning said. No problem, Leng Xiaoting said. After discussing business, Ling Xiaoting couldn't wait and pressed Gu Ning on the bed. Unfortunately, Gu Ning was on her period, which meant Ling Xiaoting had to limit his desire for at least 5 days. Ling Xiaoting was extremely unwilling to accept the truth, but Gu Ning couldn't control her period after all. Therefore, Ling Xiaoting just kissed Gu Ning for a short while before he cuddled her in his arms before falling asleep. Gu Ning, however, secretly put her magical power into his body to help him have a sound sleep. The next morning, Ling Xiaoting left early as usual. During breakfast, Gu Ning told Gu Man that she would be going to City D to deal with some business that afternoon and would stay there for the following 2 days, so a driver sent by the Tang family would come to pick Gu Man up. Although Gu Man felt a little uneasy if Gu Ning wasn't by her side, she said nothing. After breakfast, Gu Ning and Gu Man went to the Tang family's house. Chao Wenxin was going back to her home today, so she didn't go to the Tang family's house with Gu Ning. After the argument with Xia Yichu in the park, Xiao Guanxiang moved into Pei Hina's apartment. Around 8:30 a.m., Xiao Guanxiang called Xia Yichu. In the beginning, Xia Yichu was just a ghost singer, so he would only call her when need arose. However, in case Xia Yichu would betray him, Xiao Guanxiang decided to let Xia Yichu be Pei Hina's assistant too, so they could have tighter control over her. What he didn't know was that Xia Yichu had already left for the capital. Accordingly, when he called Xia Yichu, nobody answered his call. Xiao Guanxiang kept calling her, but it was still the same. He immediately felt that something had to be wrong. "What's wrong? Is she refusing to answer your call?" Pei Hina asked. "I can't get through to her." "Give me your phone," Xiao Guanxiang said. Pei Hina immediately gave her phone to him and Xiao Guanxiang used hers to call Xia Yichu once more. However, nobody answered the call again. "Could you still not get through?" Pei Hina started to panic. "I think she blocked our phone numbers." Xiao Guanxiang was annoyed. It was possible that Xia Yichu ran away from them. How did she dare to do that? Isn't she afraid that I'll hurt Xia Yidong? "Give me your other phone," Xiao Guanxiang said. Pei Hina had another mobile phone, and Xia Yichu didn't have the number of her second phone. If they got through to Xia Yichu with a different phone number, it proved that Xia Yichu had blocked their phone numbers and betrayed them. Pei Hina gave Xiao Guanxiang her other phone at once, and Xiao Guanxiang called Xia Yichu without delay. This time Xia Yichu answered his call, but hung up on him the second she heard his voice. "Damn it! She betrayed us!" Xiao Guanxiang almost smashed the phone on the ground. He was more panicked than angry now. He was right. Xia Yichu blacklisted their phone numbers and left them. Since Xia Yichu left for the capital, she planned to change her phone number, but she wasn't free yet, so she used the old phone number temporarily. "What?" Pei Hina was shocked and her face turned pale from fear. "We're doomed," she thought to herself. Didn't you tell me that Xia Yichu wouldn't dare to betray us?" Pei Hina asked in a hurry. "How could I know that she would really do it?" Xiao Guanxiang was also astonished that Xia Yichu escaped that day, right after he had threatened her. "What should we do now? If she escapes, we're doomed." Pei Hina's body shook in horror. Xiao Guanxiang made another call at once. "Lu Gu, I need your help and I'll pay you a lot for it," Xiao Guanxiang said once the call was answered. "What is it?" the man on the other side of the phone said. "I'll send you 2 pictures later along with their name and some basic information. Help me find them. Once you find them, help me control them," Xiao Guanxiang said. "No problem," the man said. After that, Xiao Guanxiang sent pictures of Xia Yichu and her younger brother to Lu Gu. Lu Gu was Xiao Guanxiang's friend in a gang. Around 9 a.m., Wan Hui, who was Lu Zhao's chauffeur and the person who had picked Xia Yichu and her younger brother up at the airport yesterday, walked to go meet them at the hotel. The hotel was just around 100 meters away from their company. On the way to their company, Wanhui said to Xiaoyichu, "Let me introduce our company to you now. Our company is still undergoing renovation, so it hasn't been formally established yet, but there are already 10 staff members. We're temporarily working on the 6th floor of an office building next to our company's building. Boss said that you can have a rest and relax for a few days before you start to work." "Thanks," Xiaoyichu said. Since she was signed by this company, she should follow their arrangements. Wanhui took Xiaoyichu to the temporary office building and pointed to another tall building not far away. "That's the Xingning Group building. Fenghua Entertainment is on the 7th, 8th, and 9th floors. The 7th floor will be a dance studio. The 8th floor will be made into a recording room, and there will be many offices on the 9th floor for the actors and staff of Fenghua. All test NOVL on novelben/.cm." Xiaoyichu was surprised. She thought that Gu Ning was just a boss of an entertainment company, however, it turned out to be a large group. In that case, Fenghua Entertainment was just a subsidiary of Xingning Group. Xiaoyichu was curious whether Gu Ning was a shareholder of Fenghua Entertainment or the founder of the Xingning Group. It was hard for her to believe that Gu Ning, who was younger than 20 years old, could be a chairwoman of such a large business group. She thought that it was more likely that Gu Ning's family owned this large business group. Xiaoyichu wanted to ask Wanhui, but thought that it wasn't appropriate, so she said nothing. After that, Wanhui guided Xiaoyichu and Xiaoyidong to the general manager's office. Once they entered the office room, Xiaoyichu took off the mask, because she thought that it wasn't polite to wear a mask all the time. The second the mask was removed, the scary scar on Xiaoyichu's right cheek was exposed, which surprised Wanhui and Lu Xiao, but they didn't show any dislike because they already knew what had happened to this poor girl. "This is Manager Lu," Wanhui introduced to Xiaoyichu and her younger brother. "Nice to meet you, Manager Lu." They greeted Lu Xiao at once. "Have a seat please," Lu Xiao said. "Here is the contract. You can read through it before you sign it." "Sure," Xiaoyichu said. Xiaoyichu's contract was the same as Su Tongnua's. The ratio of the company's take to her take was 6-4, which meant the company would take 60% while she could have 40% of the profit. Although Xiaoyichu wasn't very experienced in the entertainment industry, she had learned a lot after working with Qiao Guanxiang for so long. Usually, the ratio was 8-2, and it was rare to see 6-4, especially when she was just a newcomer who didn't have much fame. In fact, Xiaoyichu was a newcomer without fame, but her songs weren't. Pei Hina, with the help of Xiaoyichu, was already a B-list singer, and was even more popular than Su Tongnua. As long as their dirty secret was exposed, Pei Hina's career would come to an end, while Xiaoyichu would walk into people's sight. Moreover, her songs were quite popular these days, so it wasn't difficult for her to attract people's attention. Xiaoyichu would probably be criticized too after the dirty secret was exposed, but it wasn't uncommon in the entertainment industry that every celebrity had a certain amount of haters. Sometimes, those haters left many acerbic comments on the internet, not because the celebrity had done something wrong, but simply because they needed a way to vent their anger at life. All in all, one had to have a strong heart when working in the entertainment industry. "Manager Lu, are you sure the profit ratio is right?" Xiaoyichu asked with uncertainty. Lu Xiao smiled, which stunned Xiaoyichu. "This young manger is so charming." "It's right. And it's just the beginning. If you can become an A-list singer, the ratio will be 5-5, Lu Xiao said. Xiaoyichu was shocked again. If she could become an A-list singer, she could have 50% of the profit. Her new boss was really generous. After a long while, Xiaoyichu finally got her mind back. The company would provide a single apartment for her and pay the utilities. If she had her own house, the company would give her 3,000 yuan monthly as a housing allowance and reimburse her for utilities. Xiaoyichu had just arrived at the capital, and she hadn't found an appropriate apartment yet, so she chose the 3,000 housing allowance to rent an apartment for her and her younger brother. Although the housing price in the capital was extremely high, it was enough to rent a good apartment with the 3,000 yuan housing allowance. Xiaoyichu and Xiaoyidong had lived a poor life, but they still owned an apartment in City B. The apartment in City B was bought by their parents, and it was already 10 years old, but they could get some money by selling it. After that, they could use the money to buy a smaller apartment in the capital. Xiaoyichu planned to do so in the future, because she and her younger brother couldn't go back to City B now. It would be dangerous as long as Qiao Guanxiang and Pei Hina were still there. In the end, Xiaoyichu signed her name and felt quite relieved. She could finally chase her dream and fight for her own future from now on. Lu Xiao checked the contract, then asked, "By the way, which grade is your younger brother studying in now?" 11th grade, Xiaoyichu replied. "Do you have any request for the level of the school?" Lu Xiao asked. "No, just close to my older sister please," Xiaoyidong said first. Xiaoyichu agreed as long as Xiaoyidong was happy with that. In addition, she would also be worried if her younger brother studied far from her. "Great," Lu Xiao said. "Have a rest for a few days. You can find a place to live first, and I'll inform you about your future work UW on nov/l/bi.com. After that, Xiaoyichu finally settled down. When Gu Man went to talk to Tang Yunfan, Gu Ning told Tang Haifeng that she would be leaving for City D later and hoped that he could arrange a car for Gu Man. "Well, your mother can stay here with us," Tang Haifeng said. "I'm afraid that my mother prefers to stay in my house," Gu Ning said. "Fine." Tang Haifeng didn't insist. Gu Ning was busy dealing with other things, so she didn't stay in the Tang family's house for lunch. She planned to meet Lin Xiaoting first, then go to look at the garment factories together before she flew to City D. She wouldn't come back today, so she parked the car in the parking lot of the Tang family's house. The car cost over 10 million yuan, and she didn't dare to leave it at the airport. After meeting Ling Xiaoting, they went to check the garment factories together. The factories were all located in the suburbs or somewhere near the suburbs, and the first garment factory Gu Ning and Leng Xiaohao visited was in a suburb. Because the clothing it produced wasn't a famous brand, the garment factory wasn't very big. It was a medium-sized garment factory. It was a 4-story single building, and the size of each story was slightly bigger than a basketball playground. It was enough in Gu Ning's eyes. After having a short tour around it, Gu Ning decided to buy it. There were around 60 workers in the factory, including 10 or so supervisors, and the rest were common workers. The garment factory needed to stop working for a short time, but the workers would be paid as usual. And Gu Ning decided to deal with other things concerning the factory when she came back from City D. At the same time, Qiao Guanxiang was undergoing mental torture because of Xiaoyichu. Hours later, Lu Gu finally called him back, but it wasn't good news. "Guanxiang, I can't find the 2 people in the pictures. Could they have left City B already?" Lu Gu asked. Qiao Guanxiang also had the same idea but refused to believe it. However, Lu Gu failed to find them in City B, so it was likely that they had already left. Where did they go? Although Lu Gu was a member of a gang, he wasn't an important figure in the gang, so his ability was limited. Qiao Guanxiang didn't have the connections to check Xiaoyichu's and Xiaoyidong's ID cards to see whether they had booked tickets to another city either. Lu Gu failed to help him find Xiaoyichu and Xiaoyidong, but Qiao Guanxiang still had to pay 50,000 yuan. "What should we do? What should we do now?" Pei Hina was in despair. If they couldn't find Xiaoyichu, they were doomed. Qiao Guanxiang was also hopeless, but he refused to accept it. When Gu Ning and Leng Xiaoting left the factory, it was already 3:30 p.m., so they went to the airport right away. It was almost 8 p.m. when they arrived at the airport of City D, and they took a taxi heading straight downtown. Once they walked out of the airport, Gu Ning wasn't in a hurry to contact Xu Peihan and the others today, and she planned to call them tomorrow. For now, they needed to dine first and went to book a hotel. In City B, Pan Zirwei was having fun with his friends in a private room in a high-end clubhouse. "Zirwei, it's been so many days. Why hasn't your boss called you yet?" The man who had told Pan Zirwei to invite Gu Ning out to have fun with them airily asked him again. This man was named Feng Xin. He was 28 years old and was a vice general manager of a construction company. The reason he kept mentioning Gu Ning wasn't because he was interested in Gu Ning, but because he wanted to be close to the Tang family. Feng Xin approached the Tang family for a reason, of course. The government of City B was going to develop a tourist destination this year, and gave an order that only 5 companies could be involved in this project. The Tang family was very likely to be a dominant one among them, so Feng Xin was ambitious to build a close relationship with the Tang family. With his connection with the Tang family, he could easily win a seat for his construction company. Moreover, as long as he got to know the Tang family, it would be greatly helpful for him to run his business. Hearing that, Pan Zirwei stopped drinking, then realized that Gu Ning hadn't contacted him in many days. She's probably busy. Feng Xin, on the other hand, doubted Pan Zirwei's relationship with Gu Ning. If they were really close, why hadn't Gu Ning called him in so long? Even so, Feng Xin couldn't say it aloud, because he still had hoped to meet Gu Ning if he maintained the friendship with Pan Zirwei. "What's your aim? Why do you keep mentioning Miss Gu?" Guan Bin asked. He thought that Feng Xin could be interested in Gu Ning. Pan Zirwei, at the same time, looked at Feng Xin with suspicion. Feng Xin, however, denied it at once. "I just heard from you that she's really awesome, so I want to meet her. That's all." "Well, let me be honest with you. It's impossible that my boss will be interested in you," Pan Zirwei said plainly. Hearing that, Feng Xin pulled his lips. He wasn't interested in Gu Ning, but what Pan Zirwei said hurt his self-esteem, so he asked, "Why?" "Because my boss isn't only beautiful and good at kung fu, most importantly, she's only an 18-year-old, senior high school student," Pan Zirwei said. He implied that there was a huge age gap between Feng Xin and his boss, so it was impossible that they would be together. Feng Xin was shocked by Gu Ning's age. He didn't expect that Gu Ning could be so successful at such a young age. "Haha, my boss isn't a simple girl." Seeing Feng Xin being so shocked, Pan Zirwei was very proud, as if the person who was so successful was him. Everyone except Feng Xin had already heard of Gu Ning's achievements, so none of them felt that it was an exaggeration, but thought that Gu Ning had accomplished much more besides. "Wow, I'm impressed," Feng Xin said. At the same time, 2 middle-aged men were discussing something while sitting on a sofa in a study on the 2nd floor of a 3-story house which was located somewhere near a suburb of City B. One of them was Tang Deming, while the other was Tang Xinrui's father, Tang Weiyong. The talk between Tang Deming and Tang Weiyong on the phone last time was enough to prove that Tang Weiyong had a long-standing grudge against the Tang family, and had secretly attacked Tang Yunfan many times. In fact, the accident Tang Yunfan encountered in City F was also arranged by Tang Weiyong. However, none of the Tang family was aware of that. Although the Tang family was very powerful, its enemies were everywhere. Most importantly, the Tang family all believed that Tang Weiyong was dead. It was a story which could be dated back to 18 years ago when Tang Yunfan came back after he had disappeared for a whole year. 19 years ago, Tang Haifeng's younger brother, Tang Haiming, had schemed against Tang Yunfan, and Tang Yunfan had almost been killed. Tang Weiyong was precisely Tang Haiming's son. A year later, when Tang Yunfan came back home, Tang Haiming and Tang Weiyong's scheme was exposed, so they fled along with their family. In the process of arrest, unfortunately, Tang Haiming died in a car accident, while Tang Weiyong was seriously injured. Only his wife and children survived. The chief culprits were Tang Haiming and Tang Weiyong, and Tang Weiyong's wife and daughter were innocent, so Tang Haifeng didn't punish them. After that, they heard that Tang Weiyong was dead, but none of them went to check or saw it in person because it wasn't important for the Tang family back then. Unexpectedly, precisely because of that, Tang Weiyong was back and continued to scheme against the Tang family now. Now, Tang Weiyong's daughter, Tang Xinrui, had sneaked into the Tang Huang group. Once everything was ready they would act, and they were determined to take the Tang Huang group back. Of course, Tang Xinrui had changed her name and identity, so nobody would know her relationship with Tang Weiyong. The latest news, a mother and daughter often visit the Tang family's house these days. Their relationship with the Tang family isn't clear yet, but they seem to be related to Tang Yunfan, Tang Deming said. Tang Deming was from a branch of the Tang family. He hadn't participated in the scheme against Tang Yunfan, and he never thought to betray the Tang family. However, he later received a lot of favors from Tang Weiyong and was brainwashed by Tang Weiyong too, so he was now willing to do anything for Tang Weiyong. Hearing that, Tang Weiyong squinted a little and his eyes looked dangerous. He asked, "Do you mean that the mother and daughter may be Tang Yunfan's woman and daughter?" Yes. Tang Deming did have that thought. Of course, it was just a thought, but they couldn't ignore it since they were doubtful. If so, Tang Yunfan hid his secret very well. Nobody was able to discover it during the past years. Tang Weiyong wore an evil expression right now. Once Tang Yunfan had an accident, they appeared. I'm afraid that they just want to compete for the properties of the Tang family. Tang Weiyong believed that it had to be the truth. If the girl was really Tang Yunfan's biological daughter, she was very likely to inherit the properties of the Tang family. However, Tang Huang Group was his prey, and he would never allow others to grab it from him. I'll arrange some people to make it clear. If they're Tang Yunfan's family, they can't be left alive, Tang Weiyong said coldly and ruthlessly. No matter who his stumbling block was, he would remove him or her. A touch of cruelty flashed through Tang Deming's eyes. He actually had the same idea as Tang Weiyong. Tang Weiyong took a sip of tea then asked, "Oh, what do they have in mind now?" They were, of course, Qing Zhongxing and Wu Boyan who had abstained. Tang Deming seemed displeased and said in a low voice, "They didn't give me a clear answer. It seems that they'll remain neutral and are unwilling to get involved in our fight." Although it wouldn't affect their plans, they had to make more effort without their support. However, it wasn't a bad result that they remained neutral, instead of supporting Tang Haifeng. Well, two old cowards, Tang Weiyong snorted with disdain. In his eyes, neutrality was just an excuse. In fact, Qing Zhongxing and Wu Boyan were just timid and afraid. They were afraid of failure, because they would lose everything they had now once they failed. Tang Weiyong understood why they chose to abstain, because the odds of success were really small at the moment. Therefore, Tang Weiyong decided to give up on them. Gu Ning and Leng Xiaoting went to Huangdang Hotel after their meal. Because Gu Ning gave her black card to Chu Peihan, Leng Xiaoting booked a new room for them. Gu Ning was still on her period, so Leng Xiaoting couldn't have sex with her, but just kissed her for a while before they went to bed. The next morning, Gu Ning called Chu Peihan. When Chu Peihan's phone rang, it was just 7 a.m. All test NOVL on novelben/.cm. Chu Peihan thought that it was her alarm ringing, so she got up at once. However, when she noticed that it was Gu Ning's call, she was surprised. "Hey, boss!" Chu Peihan knew that Gu Ning would come here today, but she didn't expect that Gu Ning would call her so early. "I'm in Huangdang Hotel now," Gu Ning said. "What?" Chu Peihan was surprised again. "You're already here?" "Yes, are you up now? Gu Ning asked. Not yet, but I'll get up soon, Chu Peihan said. Great. Have breakfast with me downstairs at 7:30 a.m., I'll call Hao Ran as well, Gu Ning said before she hung up, and Chu Peihan got up without delay. Gu Ning called Hao Ran later, and Hao Ran was as surprised as Chu Peihan when he received Gu Ning's call. After receiving Gu Ning's call, they all got up in a hurry. Although Gu Ning told them to meet her at 7:30 a.m., they all gathered together at the dining hall on the first floor when it was just 7:15 a.m. When they saw that Gu Ning came with Leng Xiaoting, they were surprised, then stood up to greet them. They were in awe of Leng Xiaoting, because he was the youngest major general in this country. There were few people who had the chance to dine with a major general, and their friends would be envious of them. In fact, it was a test of psychological quality to dine with Leng Xiaoting, because they all felt stressed when Leng Xiaoting sat next to them. Boss, did you come here yesterday? Chu Peihan asked. Yes, but it was too late when we arrived, so I didn't call you, Gu Ning said. Oh, I heard from Mu Ke that you won't be attending the rest of the classes in our school, right? Hao Ran asked. They were kind of used to it because Gu Ning was always absent from classes. Yes, I'm very busy these days, so I'll attend the National College Entrance Examination directly, Gu Ning said. What? Hearing that, they were all astonished. They knew that Gu Ning was academically inclined so she could be absent from classes, but would their principal agree? Leng Xiaoting, on the other hand, was very pleased because he could meet Gu Ning whenever he was free from now on. He didn't need to wait for her until her classes were over anymore. Did you talk to our head teacher? Did she agree? I called our principal and he agreed, Gu Ning said. After breakfast, it was still early, so they left for the hotel where Lu Zhan stayed a little later. Gu Ning had told Lu Zhan to buy an exclusive car for the crew, a small truck to move the equipment, a medium bus for the staff, and the actors could either take their own cars or local rented cars. Therefore, the crew was able to use their own cars and only the actors were transferred by hotel buses. They weren't famous actors after all, so none of them asked for an exclusive car. When Lu Zhan saw Gu Ning, he was surprised, because he didn't know that she would be coming. Oh, hi, Miss Gu. Lu Zhan welcomed her. He didn't call her boss in front of others. Good morning, Miss Gu. Su Tonghua and the others greeted her too. Although the other staff in the crew didn't know that Gu Ning was the sole investor of this film yet, they understood that she had to be an important figure from the way the actors and Lu Zhan treated her. Lu Zhan and the group of actors went on a large bus and they were all stunned by Leng Xiaoting. They guessed that he had to be a star that Gu Ning had just hired. Since Gu Ning wasn't in the bus and there were only strangers around him, Leng Xiaoting sat alone in the front seats, keeping a distance from others. Accordingly, nobody dared to greet or talk to him. When they were about to set off, Gu Ning came back and sat right by Leng Xiaoting's side, so Leng Xiaoting became more gentle. The bus moved ahead soon, but Gu Ning didn't introduce Leng Xiaoting to the others in the bus, and nobody asked her who he was. Up to TED Chapters NNVelben.com. If everything went well, they could finish the scene at Changyang Mountain this morning. After shooting in the morning, they went back to dine in the hotel. Although it wasn't a 4-star or 5-star hotel, the food there was much better than takeout. In the following days, they were going to shoot in the Radio and Television University in City D. Jiang Bowen had talked to its principal in person, so it was settled quickly. Chu Peihan and the others' part in the film was mainly a story of a ghost in the mine. In the scene, a professor heard news about the ancient grave, so he went there with a few students. The scene only lasted around dozens of seconds in the film. Apart from that, they also needed many students to be extras, so they cooperated with some students who majored in broadcasting. Some of those extras would play roles in the film, so Lu Zhan signed contracts with them. When the film crew arrived at the school, they attracted a lot of attention from students in the campus. Before long, Chu Pei-han and the others finished their acting. However, they didn't leave right away because Gu Ning was still here. After that, they went to gather the students who majored in broadcasting to shoot the next scene. However, a girl was absent. She played an important role in the scene, so they couldn't start to shoot if she was absent. Lu Zhan was a little mad, because they had already signed the contract. If she was absent, it was a breach of contract. Most importantly, it would waste their time of shooting. Their head teacher, Xiao Yan, called the girl at once, but the girl's phone was off. "Does any one of you know where Jiang Yihan is now?" Xiao Yan asked. Jiang Yihan was the absent girl. "No idea," everyone said. Right at this moment, a gentle female voice sounded at the door of the classroom. "Excuse me, Ms. Xiao." Hearing that, everyone looked to her. It was a pretty girl named Ling Xixue who studied in the next classroom and also majored in broadcasting. "What's wrong?" Xiao Yan asked. "Well, I went to have lunch with Jiang Yihan this afternoon, but she accidentally fell on our way back and she was seriously injured, so I sent her to the hospital. Her phone was running out of power, and she didn't remember your phone number, so she told me to come back and tell you she feels guilty that she's absent, and she's willing to let me play her role," Ling Xixue said, but a touch of evil flashed through her eyes, which was caught by Gu Ning. Gu Ning squinted at her. "She's lying." Explore new ovals on nvelby.com. Well, Xiao Yan turned to look at Lu Zhan. "Director Lu, what do you think?" Lu Zhan said, "It's not easy to replace an actress after we have already chosen the right person, especially when we've signed the contract. Since Jiang Yihan can't finish her acting now, she should end the contract with us first and then we can choose another girl to play the role." It seemed like Lu Zhan was cold-blooded because the first thing he did after he found out that the actress was injured was to replace her. However, rules were rules. If you couldn't finish your work, you would be fired. In addition, Lu Zhan didn't say that Ling Xixue could get the role right away. The right of choice still laid in Lu Zhan's hands. Lu Zhan actually didn't discover anything wrong with Ling Xixue, but it was just his way of doing his job. Lu Zhan had signed Jiang Yihan because he thought that she was suitable for the role. Hearing that, Ling Xixue panicked a little, but soon calmed herself down. "Can't I replace her? It was Jiang Yihan who told me to come here." Lu Zhan frowned in annoyance. "I said that it's not easy to choose an actor who's suitable for the role. If you want the role, you need to do the audition." Ling Xixue was upset. She did want to win the role on her own, but Lu Zhan hadn't chosen her in the audition. Jiang Yihan was Lu Zhan's first choice, then there was another girl, and Ling Xixue was ranked third. Even if Lu Zhan was going to replace Jiang Yihan, Ling Xixue wouldn't be his first choice either. "Ms. Chow, I'm afraid that we can't shoot today, and I'll arrange someone to visit the girl in the hospital with you. If she can't finish her part, we need to end the contract and choose another girl. If she can recover by tomorrow, we'll go on," Lu Zhan said. It was an accident, so Lu Zhan was willing to give her another chance. "Sure," Xiao Yan said. After that, Lu Yichen and Xiao Yan went to visit Jiang Yihan together. Before they left, Gu Ning took out a porcelain bottle, giving it to Lu Yichen. She told Lu Yichen to pour some water in the bottle and help Jiang Yihan apply the water around the wound so that Jiang Yihan could recover soon and come back to finish her acting tomorrow. If Jiang Yihan had a wound, it was better to apply the medicine to help her recover. Since Jiang Yihan was the actress chosen by Lu Zhan, Gu Ning was willing to help her. As for whether Ling Xixue was involved in the accident which had happened to Jiang Yihan, Gu Ning wasn't interested. Lu Yichen was doubtful about the effect of the medicine that Gu Ning gave him, but he trusted that Gu Ning did it out of kindness, so he took it. When they separated, Gu Ning went back to the hotel. Chu Pei Han and the others didn't play important roles in the film, so the crew didn't hold an ending ceremony for them, but gave each of them a red envelope. Gu Ning, of course, would thank them later. After sending the actors to the hotel, Gu Ning said to Lu Zhan, "Uncle Lu, we'll go back later, and you need to go to the Huangdang Hotel with me to do registration before you drive the bus back to the hotel where you stay." In the morning, Gu Ning had already told the manager of the Huangdang Hotel about the bus. Because Gu Ning had the black card, she had the right to enjoy all the services of the hotel for free. The manager also agreed to let them use the car, but the user needed to do registration and sign an agreement. If the bus was damaged, they had to pay compensation. "No problem," Lu Zhan said. Lu Yichen arrived at the hospital to visit Jiang Yihan, and her family was also there. To Lu Yichen's astonishment, Jiang Yihan's father was Jiang Bowen, who was the mayor. Xiao Yan was aware of that, but she also kept it a secret because Jiang Yihan kept a low profile in the school, and only a few people knew that Jiang Yihan was the mayor's daughter. "Nice to meet you, Mayor Jiang," Xiao Yan greeted him with great respect. "Ms. Qiao, nice to meet you," Jiang Bowen said politely, then looked to Lu Yichen with confusion. "Mr. Lu, why did you come here?" Although Jiang Bowen had helped the crew find a school to cooperate with them, he had no idea that his daughter, Jiang Yihan, had joined the crew too, and Jiang Yihan also didn't dare to tell him. Jiang Yihan loved acting ever since she was a child, and her dream was to be an actress, but her family disagreed, so she took a step back and majored in broadcasting. Therefore, when Lu Yichen showed up in her patient room, Jiang Yihan was surprised and panicked. She knew that her father was going to find out sooner or later, so she remained silent, preparing to be criticized. Jiang Yihan was a good-looking girl. Although she wasn't stunning, she was still attractive. "We're here to visit Jiang Yihan, because she is playing a role in our film. We heard that she accidentally fell and was injured, so we come here," Lu Yichen said. However, Jiang Bowen wasn't mad after hearing that. He was surprised but didn't criticize Jiang Yihan. It was because Gu Ning was the investor of this film. Gu Ning planned to shoot the film in order to cover the zombie issue, and he was in charge of it now. If it couldn't be handled well, he could lose his job. Therefore, Gu Ning did him a great favor. Even though he wasn't willing to let his daughter enter the entertainment industry, he wouldn't stop her from joining the film crew. "Oh, but I'm afraid Yihan has to withdraw because her injury couldn't heal within a short time," Jiang Bowen said in a sad tone. Up to TED Chapters NNVelben.com. Hearing that, Jiang Yihan rounded her eyes in shock and couldn't believe her ears. Why did her father feel sorry for that? Before Lu Yichen said a word, Xiao Yan opened her mouth. "Mayor Jiang, we came here to check Yihan's condition. If she can't finish her part, she probably needs to end the contract with the crew." "I'm sorry." "It's fine," Jiang Bowen said. "Mayor Jiang, actually, our boss told me to give this to Yihan. It's a special medicine which can help her recover quickly so that she can keep acting tomorrow," Lu Yichen said, and felt a little nervous because he wasn't sure whether it was true. "Your boss? Do you mean Gu Ning? Is she in City D now?" Jiang Bowen was surprised. "Yes," Lu Yichen said. "Thanks," Jiang Bowen said. He still remembered that Gu Ning had saved many people's lives with her special medicine back when they had encountered a zombie at Changyang Mountain. Lu Yichen was struck dumb for a second. He didn't expect that Jiang Bowen would trust Gu Ning without hesitation. It seemed Jiang Bowen knew that the medicine was different. Without further talking, Lu Yichen took out the porcelain bottle and poured some water into it as Gu Ning had told him. The power crystal melted immediately. A nurse walked over with a cotton swab in her hands, but she hesitated to unwrap the bandages around Jiang Yihan's wound. "The wound is already wrapped well and it's not suitable to unwrap it now." The nurse wasn't arguing with Jiang Bowen, she just did her job as a nurse. It's fine. Unwrap it, Jiang Bowen insisted. Seeing that, the nurse followed his order to apply the water medicine for Jiang Yihan. Jiang Yihan didn't know whether this medicine was really effective, but she hoped that she could recover as soon as possible. In the beginning, she thought that it would be painful when the medicine was applied over the wound. However, when the medicine touched the wound, she didn't feel any pain, just coldness. After a few minutes, the wound changed significantly and faded by a third. Wow, everyone was shocked, even Jiang Bowen, who knew that this medicine wasn't simple, couldn't stay calm. It isn't painful now. Jiang Yihan was surprised as well as excited. She tried to move her legs, then felt a little pain, because it took time for the wound to heal completely. Even so, Jiang Yihan was still satisfied. Jiang Bowen, on the other hand, called Gu Ning at once. When Gu Ning received Jiang Bowen's call, she had just gone back to the Huangdang Hotel for a short time and was still registering at the reception. "Hi, Mayor Jiang," Gu Ning said. "Miss Gu, why didn't you tell me that you came to City D?" Jiang Bowen said. Gu Ning helped him a lot, so he wanted to thank her. Gu Ning was surprised. "Mayor Jiang, how did you know?" "Well, my daughter is studying in the Radio and Television University, and she joined your film crew, but she was injured today so she can't finish her part. Mr. Liu came to visit her with your special medicine, and then I heard that you're in City D now," Jiang Bowen said, then thanked Gu Ning with sincerity. "Miss Gu, thank you so much for your medicine. My daughter feels much better now." Hearing that, Gu Ning was astonished that Jiang Yihan was Jiang Bowen's daughter. "What a coincidence!" "You're welcome. Since she signed the contract with my film crew, I should help her if she needs," Gu Ning said. "Well, Miss Gu, you did me a great favor," Jiang Bowen said. "Are you free this afternoon? May I invite you to join a meal with me?" "Mayor Jiang, I would love to, but I have to leave for City B in a while," Gu Ning said. Jiang Bowen was a little disappointed, but didn't insist. "Please call me the next time you come to City D." "Sure," Gu Ning said. Lu Zhan finished registration at the hotel then drove the bus away. Chu Peihan and the others went to their rooms to pack up, while Gu Ning booked plane tickets for them after she hung up the call with Jiang Bowen. Leng Xiaoting, on the other hand, was checking the plane tickets to City B. Besides plane tickets, Gu Ning also prepared a thick red envelope for each of them. Chu Peihan and the others would leave for City F at 5:35 p.m., while Gu Ning and Leng Xiaoting would fly to City B at 5:50 p.m., so they could go to the airport together. It was only 3:30 p.m. when they all got back to the hotel, so they still had 2 hours. After packing up and checking out at the reception, it was already 4 p.m., so they took a taxi heading to the airport. On the way to the airport, Gu Ning took out 3 thick red envelopes, then gave them to her friends. "You did the acting for free, so I've prepared red envelopes for you." "Wow, it's so thick." "Thanks, boss." They took the red envelopes and thanked Gu Ning. They had taken far more expensive gifts from Gu Ning, so a thick red envelope was nothing. There was 12,000 yuan in each of the red envelopes Gu Ning sent to them because the number had a special meaning. Half an hour later, they arrived at the airport. When they got the boarding cards and waited in the lounge, it was almost 5 p.m. 20 minutes later, Chu Peihan and the others boarded, so only Gu Ning and Leng Xiaoting were left there. "Ning Ning, will you go back to your house tonight?" Leng Xiaoting asked Gu Ning. However, he was expecting her to say no. "I'll call my mom first when we're back in City B. If she's fine, I can stay outside," Gu Ning said. She was still worried about Gu Man. "Sure," Leng Xiaoting said. Gu Man was his future mother-in-law after all. Chu Pei Han and the others arrived at City Fat 6:40 p.m., while Gu Ning and Leng Xiaoting wouldn't arrive at City B until 9 p.m. However, when it was about 8 p.m., a scary scene appeared in Gu Ning's mind. In the vision, an MPV hit the private car in which Gu Man and a chauffeur sent by the Tang family drove, on a road with little traffic. Although nobody was injured, it wasn't a simple car accident. When the private car was forced to stop after the heavy knock, 4 men suddenly got out of the MPV, and they were all wearing masks, so nobody could see their faces. Once they were out of the MPV, they caught Gu Man and the chauffeur. Although the chauffeur struggled, he was easily beaten down by those bulky men. Both Gu Man and the chauffeur were abducted within a few minutes. Gu Ning's face turned pale at once and her body was trembling in fear, anger and worry. Ning, what happened? Leng Xiaoting was surprised. I had a terrible premonition. I think my mom is in danger, Gu Ning said. Leng Xiaoting understood that Gu Ning's premonitions were always right, so he felt nervous and concerned too. However, they were still on a plane and it was impossible for them to check Gu Man's condition now. Ning, don't worry. Your mother will be fine. Gu Ning also knew that she couldn't contact her mother now because she was on a plane, so she did her best to calm herself down and hoped that Gu Man would be safe. No matter who did that to her mother, she would pay them back. In City B, the traffic police arrived at the scene soon after the car accident happened, but there was nobody left there except the broken private car. The traffic police were confused, then checked the surveillance cameras, and saw the exact same scene that had appeared in Gu Ning's mind. The traffic police checked the license plates at once, and it turned out that the number plate of the MPV was fake, while that of the private car belonged to the Tang family. Knowing that, everyone in the traffic police team panicked, and they immediately took action to search for the missing victims. The moment their leader heard that the Tang family was involved in this car accident, he didn't hesitate to call the Tang family. Check new CHDers at novilbin.com. When the Tang family heard that Gu Man was abducted, they were all scared too and did everything they could to find Gu Man. Of course, they had to let Gu Ning know too. However, Gu Ning's phone was powered off. Apparently, the group of people who had abducted Gu Man were fully prepared, so Tang Haifeng failed to find Gu Man and the chauffeur even though he did everything he could right away. The Tang family only found the MPV, which was abandoned on a small road in a suburb. The number plate of the MPV was fake, so they couldn't find its owner. Besides, there were no surveillance cameras around the place where the car was abandoned. When it was 9 p.m., the plane finally landed at the airport of City B. Gu Ning and Leng Xiaoting left the airport in a hurry. The moment they were out, Gu Ning turned on her phone and saw many missed calls from Tang Haifeng. Without a doubt, Gu Ning knew that Gu Man had to be in danger now, so she called Tang Haifeng back. Ning, your mother was abducted, Tang Haifeng said once Gu Ning called him. What do we know? Gu Ning asked. Those bulky men all had masks on their faces, so we don't know who they are, and the number plate of the MPV is fake, so we can't find its owner. We followed the surveillance cameras and found a small road, but there was only an abandoned car without any people around, Tang Haifeng said. Tell me the location and I'll check it myself, Gu Ning said. Hearing that, Tang Haifeng knew that Gu Ning was back in City B now and he sent the location to her without delay. Leng Xiaoting drove the car Xingshi group prepared for him at the highest speed to the location where the abandoned MPV was founded. Within 20 minutes, they arrived. However, even though they came here, they didn't know which direction those men had escaped in. Gu Ning immediately used her jade eyes to scan the surroundings, hoping to find something that might have been lost by those men. Unfortunately, she found nothing. Right when Gu Ning was in despair, a picture flashed by her eyes, and it showed the direction in which Gu Man and the chauffeur were dragged. This way! Gu Ning said to Leng Xiaoting, then ran in that direction. Because it was a wasteland, they couldn't drive, but had to walk. After running for about 100 meters, Gu Ning stopped, because she lost the direction again. Gu Ning had her jade eyes, so she was able to see things clearly in the night, but Leng Xiaoting couldn't. Therefore, Gu Ning gave him the night luminescent pearl, and they started to search for traces of people's footsteps. Before long, Gu Ning found some, so they ran ahead following the traces. They followed the traces for over 300 meters, then came to another small road with traces of tire tracks. Gu Ning and Leng Xiaoyu thought that those men might have taken another car to escape after they had dragged Gu Man and the chauffeur here. Nevertheless, there were no surveillance cameras here, so they didn't know which direction the car left in. Accordingly, Gu Ning and Leng Xiaoting had to search for them in two opposite directions. Gu Ning ran rapidly ahead, checking the surroundings at the same time. She knew that they could have stopped anywhere by the road. Gu Ning couldn't figure out why those people had to abduct Gu Man. Gu Man just came to City B, and she stayed in the Tang family's house or Gu Ning's house the entire time. It wasn't likely that Gu Man had annoyed someone. Or, did Gu Ning ignore something? Gu Ning wasn't very clear about the Tang family's history, so she didn't know that Gu Man was abducted precisely because of the Tang family. It was a long, thin road, and Leng Xiaoting ran for over 10 minutes before he finally found a broad road. Luckily, there were surveillance cameras at the intersection. Leng Xiaoting immediately made a call. Check the surveillance cameras of a place to see the vehicles which have appeared within 2 hours. Find the owner of the MPV according to its license plate. I'll send you my location. Because Leng Xiaohao didn't know where it was, he sent the mobile location over. After that, he called Gu Ning at once. You can wait there, and keep on tracing after you get the answer. I haven't found any useful information here, so I'll walk ahead, Gu Ning said. Leng Xiaoting was just investigating, but hadn't found Gu Man yet, so she couldn't give up. Sure. You have to be careful and call me whenever you find anything useful, Leng Xiaoting said. Although he was worried about Gu Ning's safety, they had to search for Gu Man in different directions. I will, Gu Ning said, then hung up. She went further ahead in the following hours, and there were no villages around, but Gu Ning had no intention to turn back, and went further and further along the road. About 20 minutes later, Leng Xiaoting received a call. The surveillance cameras of this intersection were destroyed at around 6 p.m. and only the surveillance cameras of the roads on both sides of the intersection were still working. Within 2 hours, a total of 116 vehicles passed through the broad road. The information on the license plate numbers, owner and model, and the exact times the vehicles passed had been sent to his mailbox. Continue to track the whereabouts of these vehicles to see whether anything unusual happens, said Leng Xiaoting. Even though he got the information on these vehicles, he didn't know which one was abnormal. However, since the surveillance cameras of this intersection were destroyed in the afternoon, there was a possibility of 80% that this was where the kidnappers had passed, or it was just a trick to attract their attention away from the right direction the kidnappers escaped in. In the process of tracing them, Leng Xiaoting sensed that their enemy was very brilliant, so it was possible that they were being trapped. Leng Xiaoting called Gu Ning again, but Gu Ning's phone was busy. Gu Ning was actually talking to a man who called her using Gu Man's mobile phone. You are Gu Ning, right? Come alone to the abandoned warehouse at the western suburb. I'll tell you the specific address when you arrive there. Remember, you must come alone. If I see anyone following behind you, your mother will be punished. No problem, Gu Ning said coldly with a serious look on her face. She didn't threaten the man on the phone, in case he would be annoyed and hurt Gu Man. After that, Gu Ning immediately clicked the map open on her mobile phone to search for the location of the abandoned warehouse at the western suburb. Coincidentally, Gu Ning was precisely at the western suburb now, but she was still 1 kilometer away from the abandoned warehouse. Gu Ning didn't tell Leng Xiaoting that she just received a strange man's call because the man had warned her to come alone. She was also confident that she could handle it well on her own. Gu Ning was sure that it was a trick now, because the abandoned warehouse in the western suburb was located in the opposite direction from Lung Xiaoding. She figured out that the man was actually aiming to hurt her after receiving the call. She had made many enemies in business till now, but she didn't know who did this to her mother. No matter who he or she was, Gu Ning was determined to pay him or her back. Without hesitation, Gu Ning ran to the abandoned warehouse in the western suburb. In the Tang family's house. Tang Yunfan's fingers moved a little, and he mumbled with anxiety and fear. "Man, please, please." It seemed like Tang Yunfan was regaining his consciousness and the memory about Gu Man, but no one knew what had happened in his dream that made him so anxious. All of a sudden, Tang Yunfan's closed eyes opened and he sat up abruptly. He looked around, but there was nobody in his room, so he got out of his bed and walked out. In the living hall, the members of the Tang family were gathered, except for Chao Ruihua, his military force, and Chao Wenjun, together with his criminal police force, who were out to search for Gu Man. Tang Yunrong and Chao Wenxin were also here waiting for the information. "It's been so long. Could anything bad have happened to Gu Man?" Tang Yunrong was nervous. "Don't worry. She'll be fine," Jiang Lihua said to comfort her. "Gu Man just came to City B, and she stayed in her house or Ningning's house all the time. Why did she suddenly get abducted?" Tang Yunrong couldn't figure it out. "What? Man was abducted?" Check new CHDers at novilbin.com. Right at this moment, a shocked male voice sounded from upstairs, which surprised everyone in the hall. They looked over with one accord, then saw Tang Yunfan walking down in a hurry. "Did you say man was abducted?" Tang Yunfan asked anxiously when he walked closer to them. "Yunfan, you're awake." However, Tang Yunfan wasn't in the mood to care about his condition. All he wanted to know was what had happened to Gu Man. Tang Yunhang explained it to Tang Yunfan at once. When the chauffeur drove Gu Man back today, a MVP hit the private car to make it stop, then several men abducted Gu Man and the chauffeur. "We've sent out many people to search for them, but we haven't heard any good news yet." Hearing that, Tang Yunfan was mad. "The person who sent those men to abduct Man must be our Tang family's enemy," Tang Yunfan said. "If not, Gu Man wouldn't have been abducted, because she just came to City B and hadn't annoyed anyone." What? Everyone was shocked. If the person behind the abduction was really the Tang family's enemy, why didn't he abduct a member of them, but chose Gu Man? Had they found out about Gu Man's relationship with the Tang family? If not, Gu Man wouldn't have been abducted, because she just came to City B and hadn't annoyed anyone. In that case, Gu Man was totally a victim. "I need to find her," Tang Yunfan said, running outside. "Yunfan." Tang Yunhang wanted to stop him, but was interrupted by Tang Haifeng. "Let him go. He just woke up. It's very dangerous if he runs out like that." Tang Yunhang was worried. He admitted that he was selfish and chose Tang Yunfan over Gu Man. He did feel sorry for Gu Man, but it was a fact that Tang Yunfan was more important for their family. "Didn't you hear how Yunfan addressed Gu Man? If I guess correctly, he already regained his memory about her," Tang Haifeng said. Hearing that, everyone was surprised again. "What? Yunfan regained his memory about Gu Man?" Tang Haifeng added, "In addition, Gu Man was abducted because of our Tang family. It's already very inappropriate that we are staying at home. If we stop Yunfan from finding her now, Ningning and Gu Man will feel heartbroken." Although they had sent many people out to search for Gu Man, Tang Haifeng still felt guilty that they didn't do it themselves, so he wouldn't stop Tang Yunfan from doing so. He didn't go out to search for Gu Man because he was too old, and Tang Yunhang had to stay home to protect them. The rest of the people in the Tang family were all females, so they couldn't help. Therefore, Tang Yunfan was the perfect person to do that. Tang Yunhang agreed with Tang Haifeng, so he said nothing. All they could do now was to hope that they would get back home safely. Who's the person behind this abduction? Tang Yunrong asked. There were so many enemies of the Tang family, so she didn't know who the person could be. Tang Haifeng, as the most sophisticated man in this family, opened his mouth again. If the person behind this abduction is really our Tang family's enemy, he must be aware of Gu Man's relationship with us. If he knows Gu Man, he must know Ningning too. If he's able to know that, he should be a person who's familiar with Yunfan. I think he also has something to do with the accident which happened to Yunfan. Tang Deming was the first in our business group one who found out that Yunfan was unconscious, so the person must have a connection with Tang Deming too. Tang Deming is ambitious. They must be planning to remove Ningning from their way to the chairman's seat of Tang Huang Group. However, Ningning wasn't in City B, so they abducted Gu Man. Although it was just a guess, everyone thought that it was highly possible. Check new CHPters at novilbin.com. If so, will he call Ningning to rescue Gu Man so that they can catch Ningning at the same time? Tang Yunhang said worriedly. Hearing that, everyone was astonished. I'll call Ningning right now, Tang Haifeng said. When Gu Ning's phone vibrated in her pocket, she had already arrived outside of the abandoned warehouse, so it wasn't convenient for her to answer Tang Haifeng's call. Instead, she sent Tang Haifeng a message telling him it wasn't a right time. Reading Gu Ning's message, Tang Haifeng stopped calling her. When Gu Ning approached the abandoned warehouse, she didn't immediately call Gu Man, because she decided to attack those kidnappers and catch them by surprise. With the help of her jade eyes, it shouldn't be hard for her to find Gu Man. A while later, Gu Ning received Tang Haifeng's messages, and she realized that it really was a trap. However, it was too late, because Gu Ning was already here. Gu Ning sent a message back to Tang Haifeng and told him that she would be careful, then kept searching for Gu Man. Tang Haifeng was too worried about Gu Ning's safety, so he forgot to tell her that Tang Yunfan was awake now. After a while, Gu Ning finally saw 4 men in the completely dark warehouse, but Gu Man was absent. They really aimed to catch Gu Ning. Even so, Gu Ning wouldn't leave because she had to find out where Gu Man was from their mouths. Hey Z, would the girl called Gu Ning dare to come here? Will she call the police? A man asked with doubt. Although Gu Ning said that she would come alone as they ordered, he didn't believe that a young girl would have the courage to meet them. Since she said yes, I bet that she'll come, because her mother is in our hands now. Moreover, I heard that the young girl isn't simple, so we must be careful. Hey Z said. She's merely a young girl. What can she do to us? A man said with disdain. Exactly, but the girl is really beautiful. I feel sexually excited already seeing her picture. If the person who hired us allows us to touch her, I want to have some fun, haha, a man said with an evil smile on his face. Me too. Once it's done, let's go find some women to have some fun together, another man said. Hearing their talk, Gu Ning was furious. She kicked the door open all of a sudden and attacked them before they were prepared. Because Gu Ning showed up unexpectedly, those men were soon beaten down before they could fight back. Gu Ning attacked their most vulnerable parts without hesitation, and they screamed from the pain. Gu Ning beat them down with great force because she felt very disgusted. All those men were on the ground moaning in pain within seconds. To their astonishment, this young girl was very strong and could easily beat them down like lightning. Gu Ning took out ropes and tied them up, so that it was impossible for them to struggle, let alone escape. After that, she stared straight at them and asked in a cold voice, "Where is my mother?" Gu Ning's sharp eyes, cold expression, and imposing manner made them feel shocked and oppressed. They even felt the chill from the bottom of their feet and trembled in fear. However, they still refused to tell her. "I think that you better let us go. If you dare to kill any of us, your mother won't stay alive. Do you think that I wouldn't dare to hurt you?" Saying that, Gu Ning took out a gun all of a sudden, then aimed at one man's shoulder. Boom! The man shouted in pain and horror. At this moment, they were all scared. This young girl had a gun, and she shot them without blinking her eyes. Obviously, this wasn't the first time that she had shot a man. "Tell me, or get killed." Gu Ning was getting increasingly cold, and they almost lost their breath. However, they still didn't give up threatening. "You! How dare you shoot me? We're members of the Kirin gang." "The Kirin gang?" Gu Ning squinted in greater coldness, but she didn't jump to the conclusion that the Kirin gang had abducted Gu Man just because they were members of it. She knew that gangsters would do anything for money, so she wasn't sure whether they had been hired by someone else to abduct Gu Man. Therefore, Gu Ning glared at the man and asked seriously, "Do you mean that my mother is in the hands of the Kirin gang?" "Yes, and so what?" the man said arrogantly. He believed that this young girl had to be afraid of the Kirin gang. Gu Ning was indeed worried, because the Kirin gang wasn't the Qing gang, and it was common that they would hurt the hostages. Gu Ning was unwilling to waste time, so she stopped talking to them, but called Qi Tianlin at once. When Qi Tianlin received Gu Ning's call, he was surprised. "Miss Gu, I'm surprised that you'd call me." "What? Did you win a fortune again at the Earth nightclub?" Qi Tianlin said in annoyance. "I wish, because I can walk out of the Earth nightclub without your help in that case," Gu Ning said. She wasn't in a good mood now. "Well, it seems that you're not in a good mood." Qi Tianlin didn't mind Gu Ning's aggressive attitude because he found something more interesting. Gu Ning had been in a rage when they had fought against each other last time, and she had behaved like a mature woman. However, when she called him this time, she sounded like a girl who was annoyed. All new chapters nnv.com. "Qi, I don't have time to argue with you now. My mother was abducted at XX Road around 8:10 p.m. today, and the kidnappers claimed that they are members of the Kirin gang," Gu Ning said. When those men heard Gu Ning talking with Qi Tianlin on the phone, they were shocked. They couldn't believe that this young girl was able to know their head in the gang. "Really? Give me some time. If it's true, I promise that I'll handle it well," Qi Tianlin said with sincerity. Although Qi Tianlin was still displeased with what Gu Ning had done last time, he didn't hate her. Instead, he had the intention to make friends with her, so he, of course, wouldn't upset her. Gu Man wasn't in this warehouse, and Qi Tianlin promised to help her, so Gu Ning thought that there was no need to stay here any longer. Before Gu Ning left, she unfastened them, but beat them again to vent her anger. They were evil people, but she wasn't willing to be involved in murder just because of them. After that, Gu Ning left with Gu Man's phone. Once she walked away, she called Leng Xiaoting and told him what she had been through. Then they went to meet each other at the place where they had stopped the car. When Leng Xiaoting heard that Gu Ning had gone to meet the kidnappers alone, he was more worried than upset, because he was afraid that Gu Ning might be hurt. However, since Gu Ning was fine now, he didn't mention it. Tang Yunfan was also out for a long time, but he had no idea where Gu Man was. In the end, he went to the place where Gu Man had been seen last, and there was an abandoned MPV. 10 minutes later, Gu Ning received Qi Tianlin's call. Qi Tianlin told her that Gu Man was indeed in the hands of the Kirin gang, and she could go to the Earth nightclub to pick her mother up. Hearing that, Gu Ning was finally relieved, so was Leng Xiaoting. They then drove to the Earth nightclub together. From afar, Gu Ning and Leng Xiaoting noticed a man standing at the accident scene. Gu Ning used her jade eyes so that she could see his face clearly. When she recognized that the man was Tang Yinfan, Gu Ning was surprised that he was already awake. It was obvious that he knew that Gu Man had been abducted. Gu Ning stopped the car and ran to Tang Yinfan at once, followed by Lin Xiaoting. When they moved closer, Lin Xiaoting recognized that the man was Tang Yinfan, and he was surprised too. Tang Yinfan heard the noise, then looked at Gu Ning. He was astonished as well. "Uncle Tang, you're finally awake," Gu Ning said with excitement. Tang Yinfan, however, asked Gu Ning with anxiety, "Ning, how is your mom now?" "My friend has found her, and we can go to pick her up right now," Gu Ning said. Well, truckers, that's all for this part. See you all in the next video.